This is the most excited I've been in a long time doing WiredIn because I have absolute legends, I can say.
I've got 5 minutes to kill.
Exactly.
Here's what I think.
Just the right person at the right time. You just grab some opportunities on the way.
Young business owners, young brand managers, there's a world beyond your Instagram trending.
Yeah.
They think their little Insta bubble is the world of consumers. They don't understand that Koramangala and Kolhapur is different.
With personal branding, you're not worried about how your individual posts, whether it's on Insta or Twitter or LinkedIn, perform. You're looking at a long-term performance.
Today, you're getting the absolute leftovers who are joining advertising. And they will bubble up and become the heads of agencies.
To be fair to those agencies, they have probably not defined their own agency brand as sharply as they do client brands. I don't think a 23-year-old today would even know what to observe in the first place because they've just so digitally native. They know only to observe what happens in a reel or what happens in a Reddit thread.
Where do you want the logo? Make the logo bigger, sir. Do you want Starburst? Do you want your little daughter coming in the video? Wo bhi kar lenge, sir. Right. Which influencer you want to work with? We'll sign up, sir. You already signed up. We'll call them, sir. The yes, sir, Giri is too high, I think, today.
The food can be delivered in 10 minutes. Even relationships from an advertising or a marketing communication point of view has come to that level.
L&T has been making news in recent times after the chairman remarks of a 90-hour work week and the company's statement following it. How do you think they have handled it?
Badly, in one word.
I also have another unpopular opinion, which is no. Great. This is I think, the most excited I've been in a long time doing WiredIn because I have absolute legends, I can say.
No,
but absolute. If there's a benchmark for who you want to look up to on LinkedIn and social media to get knowledge, I think both of you in the last few years have sort of established. I look forward to most of your posts, in terms of, even if we're not connected, I've been following you guys for a very long time, and then I've always looked at what you've put out, and it's been a great source of material for me also in times, when I want to understand thought process behind an ad or what kind of strategy somebody used. And there's been, I think I speak for most young marketers today. I think when I mentioned that, I'd be getting the two of you on, a lot of them in the room here in the office were excited. I've tried to sort of keep you hidden away from the rest because I think all of them would come knock and want to speak to you guys. Probably will get some chance for doing that later on. But I want to start off with quickly understanding your origin story. How did the both of you get into this line of work?
Origin story makes it to pick some
like
superheroes.
Exactly. That's
or a supervillain. One of the two. You go.
Okay, so origin stories, are very impressive when you kind of talk about them 20, 30 years down, Everything that you arrived at actually sounds like, wow, this is like a dream. And I always tell young people, I think serendipity, chance, opportunities, accidents is what makes a story. So I gave a copy test in an agency called Enterprise Advertising, run by Mohammed Khan, and I got hired as a trainee account executive, and many years later, my mentor, Anand Halve, who hired me, said, Mohammed said you didn't have it in you to be a great copywriter. I said, actually, he meant he's a shitty copywriter, but I know Mohammed well. So I got into advertising. Was that planned? No. I crossed over to the client side a few years later because a company advertised, and they advertised for a general manager marketing communications, and I was a senior account executive, and my boss in Enterprise said, apply. I said, are you mad? They want someone with 15 years experience. He said, apply.
Boss.
And they never hired a general manager marketing. They hired me as assistant manager marketing, and I moved client side. So, origin stories are like this. The Taj launched a website in the year 2000, and I saw it, and I wrote to my former boss, because I used to work with the Taj before that, saying, here's the Taj website, here's what it is like, here's what it should be like, and here's how it can get there. 1 page, 12-point size, sent to a director in the company. She said, stop talking, come and do it. Again, they hired me as a flunky. They thought they're going to get someone from an international company. They discovered the person costs 300,000 US. I cost maybe 15 lakh Indian rupees or 5 lakh Indian rupees or whatever. And I spent 10 years there, and internet marketing and Taj and my career in internet marketing grew around what I did. So it's all serendipity. I pitched myself, I pitched a presentation to B.S. Nagesh at Shoppers Stop 3 years into my work life. He said, "Why are you telling me this?" I said, "Because there's no one else in retail in India, and you're the only one. So I came to you." He said, "Do you want a job?" I said, "I just came here to share this with you." He offered me a job as his EA.
And you said no.
I said no because he couldn't convince me that it's more than a glorified secretary's job
Right.
back then. If I had gotten there, you may not have been interviewing me, or you may have been interviewing me as a retail somebody.
Yeah, true.
So my origin
Serendipity.
story is a series of accidents, a series of lucky opportunities. Sometimes I said yes, sometimes stupidly said no. Here I am,
And what year did you start?
93.
93. And this was somewhere in the 2000s.
Which?
The story with Sharpest.
No, 1996.
Okay.
There was one
Wow.
store.
Right.
He was the largest. He had a place
had
at
only one
Andheri.
store in
He had
96.
one store
Right.
in Andheri. I actually presented. I made an acetate presentation, and his HR person actually set it up on a Saturday. She said, "Okay, come and meet me." And after I made it, she said, "This is good. Will you make it to Nagesh?" I said, "That's what I told you in the first place."
You're talking about the overhead
Overhead
slides.
acetate, handwritten
Baapre.
and handwritten with colored pens. So it's
Wow.
okay. And she said, "Will you make the presentation to Nagesh?" And I said, "Yeah, I asked you in the first place, but you didn't set up the meeting." And she called him into the room, and I made a presentation to him and his ops head, a lovely gentleman called Ajoy Krishnamurthy. Serendipity, complete serendipity. Let's hear Karthik's exciting story.
But I also want to know, so obviously after that, at some point you were also at Infosys, which
Yes.
as head of digital.
Yes.
It is, I think, titled head of digital marketing, but I'm assuming it's everything digital communication, I would say.
Yes.
That was year 2012,
12.
right? What is the journey from getting there like?
Okay, so if someone told me, "Will you work for a company called Infosys?" at any point till I actually got the opportunity, I would say, "You mad? I don't get B2B. What is IT?" etc., etc. But in 2008, I was in an agency called Euro RSCG, which is Havas now. And we did work with IBM. And we were a 2-member rockstar Bangalore team with a bunch of 15 interns that took on Karthik's former agency, Ogilvy.
Yeah.
But we were hungrier than them, and we were really fighting. And I spent 2.5 years working on IBM agency side, and I saw how exciting B2B communication could be.
Yeah.
So when the Infosys opportunity came along, of course it was a conventional opportunity. They called me, there were interviews, somebody came to meet me in Bombay, blah blah blah. I said yes. I moved to Bangalore for that opportunity. I'd lived in Bombay all my work life before that. So that's how Infosys came about.
And then you've been here since then.
I have been in Bangalore. Bangalore's home now for 12, 13 years.
So that job brought you here basically.
That job brought me here, and then I made Bangalore home. I'm home in its traffic. I'm home in its in its beer brews. I'm here home in its darshanis.
And the weather, you have to
The
plan.
weather is no longer so great.
Really?
The summers are hot and
well,
the winters are not so cold.
It's changing.
Bangalore is losing that, but it still beats most places.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely beats.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair. Karthik, yours.
So, nothing major in terms of origin. The only thing that I probably consciously did was the beginning when I used to stammer hell of a lot all through school and college. The kind of person who never spoke up in class at all. That bad stammer, and used to have a severe confidence issue because of stammering. So at one point when the opportunity presented itself, I thought I should pick some kind of career, at least at the beginning, which forces me to talk to people. And one of the opportunities that was in front of me was corporate communication. I never heard about corporate communication at all. In fact, before learning about corporate communication, I had applied to a couple of ad agencies because I was enamored by advertising generally. I had a couple of people in my family, cousins working in places like Fulcrum, which was a media buying agency, and Ogilvy and all that stuff. And I applied to a Kerala-based agency called Ideopraxis. I don't know if you heard about it. It used to be there. I don't know if it's still there at all. It went nowhere, obviously, and didn't work at all. Then I thought Corpcom seems like a good opportunity because it forces me to communicate for a living. That changed my life, actually. And I was in Corpcom for the first 8 to 10 years. Then moved to client side, then moved from Corpcom to agency side, then client side again, then agency side. I kept moving. Then only towards the end of my career in Ogilvy, which is a proper ad agency. And I was very happy. Finally, I get to come to an ad agency. But I'm very tired of all agencies and clients now. I can't do this full-time employment anymore at all. But like he said, there's nothing planned. Just right person at the right time. You just grab some opportunities on the way kind of stuff. So one thing that I've done reasonably well at the right person at the right time part was 2008 was the inflection point, at least in India, when social media was happening big and internet also, because 2006 was Facebook going public. Twitter launched in 2006. 2008 was the right time, 2 years to percolate down in India from the US. And I was in the agency set at the time, Text 100, which was a PR agency. And I thought, let's look at how to do PR using digital tools.
Right.
And I remember pitching to clients like Lenovo for the first time social media monitoring. They had no clue what I'm talking about.
Right.
And this was not even social media platform monitoring. It was discussion board monitoring.
Right.
Where a lot more action was happening.
Right.
So did a lot of interesting, unconventional stuff, got paid for it because it's an agency.
Right.
And that experience carried things further, but mostly right person at the right time. That's about it. As he said, chance, serendipity. You just grab some opportunities on the way, but can't take too much credit for anything much.
And what year did Ogilvy happen?
Ogilvy was 2013 to 18, 5 years.
Got it.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
much later.
I think,
the last end of my career. In fact, I wanted to join advertising, but I ended my career in advertising.
Yeah, that's very interesting. For both of you, at the times you were starting off in the 90s, were opportunities in marketing plenty, or was it something where you probably had to start at sales and then maybe work your way?
I started in Corpcom, where my parents had no clue about PR or Corpcom at all. Even I had no clue at all. But I think that's a good grounding, because Corpcom gives you a good bird's eye view of communications from a company's perspective. And then from there on to move to agency or advertising, it's good. And Corpcom is mostly organic communications, not paid communications. It's organic, because it's not marketing. It's not paying and getting things done. Right. It's talking to media, talking to journalists, convincing them that the story is worth writing about.
Right.
So that's a good grounding, I think. Getting to start with organic is good. And then you learn everything on the way from paid marketing kind of stuff.
Marketing existed long earlier, before the 90s. I used to read a lot. So I used to read a magazine called A&M.
Same here.
And, I thank Shrikant Khandekar for having this subscription offer. 5 years, 300 rupees. It was a lot of money. Yeah. But my mom took a 5-year subscription for 300 rupees.
Totally
2 times a month. I used to read it cover to cover. I used to collect brand equity. I think there used to be another marketing supplement that came in one more newspaper. I think it was Business Standard, once a week. My mom used to go to the newsstand and buy that paper. And we used to not get Economic Times at home. We used to get the Times of India. On Wednesdays, we used to get the brand equity. And I used to devour it. So I had this love for marketing. I used to read interviews of people. Of course, now I understand a lot of those may be planned interviews and narratives people want to plant. But I read them. Yeah. I read people's success stories. I read someone in a tire company, how they grew. I read about ad campaigns. I read about PR blurbs, which were ad campaign announcements, but they were still ad campaign announcements. There was no YouTube. I used to watch one channel television, etc. Yeah, there were no ads we saw beyond the point. But marketing existed. No one in my family had done marketing. My dad was a government officer. I got into advertising. Advertising was creating communication. Did I know there is something called brand management then? Not really. Right. My clients were brand managers. We just went along. Sometimes not knowing everything, not having too many places you get information from, and stumbling along and having a few people who kind of nudge you along, like my former boss who said, apply to the Taj. Just do it, apply, you'll get it, and pitching myself for roles like I did a few times. So sometimes, I may not be an entrepreneur or I've created a business, but when people talk of founders or whatever, I say, my generation had it. People before my generation also had it. Even my job in Euro RSCG, after I met the then CEO, he said, come back and tell me what you can do. And I actually pitched what yourself. I could do. And he said, this is great. And then I pitched to his boss, who was the APAC head. And then the role got frozen because they didn't have a head count. I was traveling to London for an event I was speaking at for something else. I got in touch with his global CEO, who got in touch with him and said, this guy has just asked me to meet me. And I actually plugged in a pen drive into his computer in his office in London for 1 hour. And then when I landed back, he said, listen, now we are hiring you. I mean, you went all the way to London to get this job. And I spent 2.5 years doing it. So, sometimes somebody just said, come, do it. Sometimes you push. Sometimes you didn't push hard enough. But I think marketing, brands, consumers, after all this, I mean, interests me. It's my passion. I wouldn't see myself doing anything else, in the future. And if I had to dial back, I would do much of the same with a few. I would say yes a lot more. And I would take a chance a lot more. And not be, should I, shouldn't I?
Right.
The one thing on A&M, because he'd mentioned, because A&M is probably the only magazine that I used to read end to end, and it was very difficult to get A&M in Coimbatore in the mid 90s when I grew up. So from my place, I had to cycle down to another place called Araspuram, which is the heart of Coimbatore back then. There was one bookstore in Araspuram, all of Coimbatore, who used to store A&M.
Right.
So I need to call him from a landline, ensure it's there, drive all the way, ride all the way, cycle and get it back. I used to finish reading it and then come back home.
Right.
It was a big grounding from an interest in advertising and marketing point of view. So hats off to Srikanth way back then.
Very interesting. I asked because I think I was in that. I joined college in 2010, graduated in 13, and I did BBM with specialization in marketing. And towards the end, I was probably the last generation who was given a big fat Philip Kotler's marketing management.
Kotler
Right?
book.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that was our sort of Bible in class because that's the only book we were ever asked to
You
carry.
can throw it off now.
Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
point.
Right. Exactly. So, and then I remember like we were doing a lot of events in college. We had to do promotion advertising in college. And I remember when I became in charge of it in my third year, the process was that they would they would print out A3, A4, A5 posters and stick it in different parts, right? And I was like, this is so flawed because this makes no sense. And I remember I setting up Facebook pages for the first time for internal events.
Nice.
And that sort of, being that way to go forward. Because I think I was still in that age where people still used a BlackBerry and there's a BBM pin, which is what everyone used to share around. Smartphones still hadn't sort of become the go-to model. So I've seen that evolution. And I today, when we speak to people from colleges, it's very different.
Completely.
Yeah. I think the source material or what they use to learn, study is completely changed.
Yeah.
In fact, I think a lot of them today, I was at one of the universities recently, just went in for one of the sessions. They'd call me, and when I asked them, I said, what do you attribute to your learning today? Where do you get your most knowledge? More than 50% of the class just put their hand up and said YouTube. Which is quite, luckily the teachers weren't there at that point in time. They were out of the room, but I found that very interesting. And I sort of relate because even I think mid 2010s, I've sort of switched to YouTube to understand what different principles are or what different, markets and countries or companies are doing. And I think that's become today like the major source, right, of learning. It's very interesting. So yeah, it's good to sort of compare our journeys in different times. So at some point, both of you took a call and said, we are not now working with a single organization and we want to transition, become consultants. And I'm assuming it happened at different years for both of you.
Mine is 2018.
Mine was 2015.
Right. So some close by, but what made you do that? I have a follow-up question, which is because today that's the trend, but what made you take that move in that point in time? And what is that initial experience like?
Mine, very simple, Bangalore traffic. I used to spend about 1.5 hours one way or 2 hours one way from Sarjapur Road to Whitefield. I cannot do that anymore at all, was my thing. And I thought, I've spent 20 plus years ho gaya, so let's try working, because I have worked with other brands. Let me try to work on my own brand, whether it works or not.
Right.
So I thought I'll give myself 2 to 3 years, and I've been preparing for the 2018 move from 2015 onwards. Right. So I used to write consciously more online, read more online, understand more stuff, trying to build that personal brand kind of stuff, because without personal brand, nothing will work. So one thing I keep telling people is, when you go on your own, you should not expect your next business to come from people you already know. You should start expecting business to come from people you have no clue they exist, but they think they know you. That's the charm of personal brand or magic of personal brand. That works well. Most people think I know about 100 people odd. I have cultivated relationship. They will keep giving me business. That's not going to happen. They will give you business once maybe. Uske baad, it's an obligation. It's not going to work at all. You can't keep going back to friends and ask business or thing. So it should be from newer people. And that can be millions of people who think they know you, what you're worth, and then you pick and choose what you want to work on.
Right.
So I've been working on it for 3 years and I thought it's good time to try. Now in hindsight, I should have done it long ago, but there is a time and place for everything and God chooses all that stuff. We don't. Right. So it worked.
Well, my case is a little different. So a year, 2 years before I kind of went independent, I was informally having feelers from people, founders, because Bangalore is full of them. We have this brand. Will you help us? What should we do? We need an agency. Who should we work with? Branding stuff. And there was a good amount of interest. Some of it was paid informally. Some of it was not because I was in a full-time job. So contractually, I couldn't be working for somebody.
Which is called let me pick your brain.
Let me pick your brain, or I let them pick mine because
Which is what I'm saying.
I let them pick mine because
can I pick your brain?
I was working, with a company that would be fairly strict on contractual obligations, etc. In Infosys, yeah. So I didn't want to get on the wrong side of the contract, which is a big contract, Then I realized that I was limited because I was working with people at 7 in the evening and on weekends, and business works 9 to 7, not 7 to 7. So founders say, can we meet at 3? Can we meet on Monday at noon, not at 7 p.m. on the day you want, or on Saturday or on Sunday, because it didn't work. So I said, there seems to be an opportunity. I seem to be enjoying what I'm doing. Why don't I give it a go? What's the worst that'll happen? I'll be an utter failure. And someone will hire me back into a job because I'm not going to be actually growing roses in that time. I'm going to still be doing marketing and branding. So I'm only going to be getting smarter and learning more and having the opportunity to, experiment more. So let's do this. But I did tell myself that, okay, you have all these years of experience, 22, 23 years of experience, but I'm going to treat myself like a management trainee as a consultant. So for the year or two, I'm going to actually stumble, learn. I don't know what will work. I don't know what will sell. I don't know what I do, whether it adds value, etc. And I was lucky to get not just small, but some very large brands who kind of approached me. I didn't do this pre-work on personal brand. I didn't honestly think about it. I used to be visible a little bit through events and writing, etc.
LinkedIn group, I remember you had a very popular group.
I had a very popular LinkedIn group at the time, but I don't think that gave me much because by the time 2015 happened, that was in the 10s. That was
when you were in Euro RCG.
I was in Euro RCG. Yeah, LinkedIn used that as a case study on LinkedIn groups as in a LinkedIn presentation organically.
Yeah. What is it called?
It was called The Future of Digital for Brands, and it had over 10,000 members from 60, 70 countries. We are very active, high quality discussions and interesting stuff. And, so I didn't really think about, do I have a personal brand, etc., at all. I just kind of went along. I got people from various sectors reaching out, some very large MNCs, businesses I'd never worked with in pharmaceuticals in different areas who kind of gave me work. And over the years, I evolved a model. What works, doesn't. Is a project model good? Is it a retainer model? I don't do workshops. I don't do training. I don't do teaching. I do more advisory stuff. So I've stayed away from workshops and I think I get less
I'm actually the opposite. I do a lot more workshops than consulting, and I prefer doing that too.
Yeah. So this is going to be my next question, which is, when you started out, was there a particular service or particular problem that these clients came to you with?
Okay, so it's a good question. So even then and even now, clients come to you with whatever they think is a problem. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're saying, I need better performance marketing. Why am I not getting an ROI on this? Or I want to launch this. They rarely articulate what the real problem is. That comes with time. Because what they tell you is what's surface level. doctor, I'm feeling low in energy. But he won't tell you everything else. Then you need to kind of actually drill down to actually arrive at what is the problem and what is success to him. Because, typically that's another malaise that agencies suffer from. A client will call and say, I need an ad film. You make an ad film. 3 months later, he sacks the agency saying, my sales didn't increase. But he didn't tell you, I want to increase sales. And you're right to say that, you asked for an ad film, I made an ad film. So, which is why even in my LinkedIn profile, I actually use a word that some people have made fun of, saying, you call yourself a brand doctor. I said, because that's what I am. Yeah. I actually need to do tests, but I cannot test you for cancer without actually first trying to fix your viral. And viral as in a virus infection, not a viral piece of content. Yeah. Because sometimes they're like, why didn't you arrive at that? I said, I won't. And that's why I'm a brand doctor. I look at you, I'll do observational therapy, then I'll do what you tell me, then I'll actually do what's underlying. And if we go along in a journey, and that's what I actually encourage clients when they work with me, go along in a journey, you will tell me a lot more than you tell me, and I'll discover a lot more. And that's when magic will start happening for your brand. If we keep it very shallow and let's see what we can get in 3 months, you'll never open yourself up as a brand and as a brand owner to me. And I won't be able to drill down fully because it'll be very here and now, tactical, immediate, what we do on Monday morning kind of thing.
Right.
So I'm the opposite. I insist on minimum 2 to 3 months only. Maximum 2 to 3 months only. I want to make myself redundant after 2.5, 3 months. Get me out of the system. And that works well for me. For training is much different, of course. Right. They just say, most of the training comes to me, says, we just want to think in a different direction,
right,
which is good. And I'm able to help them understand that. But with consulting, I clearly say, please tell me what you want. Or if they're not able to tell me, I keep asking them questions, like he said, trying to drill down what they seem to want, write it down clearly, get an understanding, and said, I would want to work only 2.5, 3 months. Right. That's a contract I want. I don't want anything more at all. Make me redundant after 3 months is the idea. Think, hand it over to them, move on life.
Right.
That's it.
So it's more of setting a strategy.
Correct. And very pointed, very specifically on one thing. That's about it. Nothing
Do you
more.
think that is the biggest gap in the market where they don't know how to set a goal? I sometimes, in conversations with early stage and even large organizations sometimes, because based on dynamics, feel
not
that
necessarily, because the reason why I'm pitching for a 2 to 3 month is that I know that they already have a long-term partner in terms of a PR agency or a corpcom or an ad agency. I don't want to be one more long-term agency or retainer for them at all. I just want to be something specific. For instance, one of the clients that I worked with, they were working with a fairly large agency up north, Gurgaon. And they just wanted a neutral third person from the south to go through a south specific lens for all the communication. They come up with a very north centric lens.
Right.
And they've seen me relentlessly talking about the transliteration or translation going completely haywire. Yeah. In spite of that agency being a national agency, I'm not going to name the agency, it's too risky, but it's being a national agency, they're still not able to get it. So all they wanted me to do without the knowledge of the agency was to they send me the draft script that comes from the agency to me first. See from your lens whether it'll apply to South or not. And I was just doing that for about 2.5 months, literally doing that. That's the only thing they wanted. Fine, works for me.
Right. But in larger sense, right, in terms of, are you seeing a change or evolution in clients from 10 years ago to now in terms of the kind of problems they're coming to you with? Is there any trend in that?
So it depends on what they see you as. So one thing I'm very clear, I don't execute. So I don't execute anything. And that's actually good because then I don't force fit a solution. So if a client gives me a great work for 3 months and I make a lot of money doing SEO, I'll tend to sell an SEO solution to everyone else because I have a team sitting around.
Yeah.
If I build 3 apps, I'll try and sell an app solution. So I'm not vested in any solution. I'm absolutely neutral, like Karthik said. So I think I've found myself the best relationships I have and the best outcomes I deliver are when business owners and brand owners talk to me rather than marketing teams. Marketing teams can't hire a consultant. A CMO can't hire me because why is he a CMO? I mean, it takes a very strong CMO and a very strong CMO's management to say, let's get the outside guy in. Informally, they pick my brains because I have this thing I do a couple of times a year. I do a Dhanteras offer where I offer to spend a few hours of my time with few people who want to spend 90 minutes with me. I also do a Santa Claus offer at Christmas where I offer 4 or 5 people. And interestingly, not all of them are startups or founders. Some are CMOs of very large corporations with hundreds of crores or thousands of crores who want 90 minutes of my time for free because they can't pay for it to pick my brain. So I find really the evolution of what they're looking for. Sometimes they actually want something very shallow. A founder wants something very shallow. The other thing is, we are a cost as an advisor because when we don't execute. And strategy is the most abused term in marketing and in the agency world. Everybody gives a strategy. Even an SEO agency has a strategy. Actually, it's a keyword strategy. It's not a brand strategy. It's not a business strategy. Every communication agency uses 42 slides arriving at a manifesto, which is a advertising campaign strategy or a justification of slide 44. Is not a brand strategy. So a lot of people actually assume that we get the strategy there, what are you giving me? So I say, no, I actually give you a very different perspective. I sometimes question the fundamentals of your product, of your pricing and other stuff. So it takes an owner to understand it. A marketer still wears a hat saying, in the next 6 months, do I have a campaign? Of course, if they want to improve virality, I'll tell them. If they want an influencer strategy, I'll tell them why they do it one way or another and make them do what they're doing better. Make them consider new things, introduce them to a wider landscape, really saying, in the long term, if you truly want to build your brand beyond the sale, you need to invest time, effort, money for the long term. I wish more agencies could do that with clients, but I'm not complaining that they don't, because then people like us have jobs. In the old days, agencies are truly trusted partners. Now they're like, okay, we'll get an agency to do this. We'll get this campaign done, etc.
I think it's become more execution-led. Has anyone approached either of you and hired you as a personal marketing coach? I ask this because now there are so many coaches, right? Life coach, fitness, obviously it's over and done. There's so many of them who have life coaches, mentors, etc. It's only a matter of time. I feel that before someone will go and hire a marketing coach, for their personal self.
Karthik probably would have dozens of clients doing this because he's a trainer.
I keep getting personal brand coach from individuals, but I generally say no to individuals. I work with corporates at a few leaders together at a time kind of stuff. The very few individuals that I worked with directly, because there are too many egos involved, too much egos involved. But yes, I keep getting that for individuals quite often. I say no consciously. At this point, I don't need to do that. So I can afford not to do that.
But in my case, I have, as part of my engagement, explain to brands how they could use their people better. So it's not coaching them as much, but telling them what to do. So there's this IT company which is has a very venerated founder, which is $1 billion company, but is in the next year. It's in the $1 billion to $2 billion and not in the 6, 8, 10, $20 billion. And the founder is very highly respected. I mean, there's a story that when he traveled to the US, Bill Gates came to receive him at the airport. He wears sandals and very, very, humble, very, very humble, and his team was like, how do we use his perspective? I said, writing a blog with quoting him is not going to help. So I actually told them, how far is he from the office? And they said 15 or 20 minutes. So I made the marketing guy travel with him on his drive to work with the ambient sound and said, he's going to talk while he's driving to work with all the noise, with all the noise around, because what he says, people will listen to.
Authentic.
And they actually, he just did it. The first few days, he just asked him 2 questions, switched on his phone and recorded it and posted it. I said, post it, and he got feedback saying, wow, you're saying this. He said, where did I say it? And then his manager went and took me with him, just for as a shield, saying, people love this. And he says, why don't we do it in the office properly? I said, no, you do it this way. Your
So more
authenticity
authentic.
will come.
Yeah, correct.
And he actually loved it. And he could actually then do
Be
it
himself.
quite often.
Yeah.
And he didn't even have to kind of say, I have an agenda.
Correct.
He was
Because
like,
he was
listen,
just
I've
being
got
himself.
5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes to kill. Here's
Exactly.
what I think.
Yeah.
Something happened. Here's what I think. So he started recording it on his phone. And then he understood his brand environment was noisy. So he actually opened a window so that he got brand noise even if he's in a quiet place. So he's a smart guy, right? He understood. He said that's what it should not seem sanitized. It should be unfiltered literally.
Yeah.
Right.
So those kind of ideas, I do provide, I also tell founders there is a founder business brand and there's a founder brand and the founder investor brand. Too many founders on LinkedIn are actually going down the investor route and saying my brand is getting marketing. No, your brand is not. You are. Investors might love you.
Yeah.
If you're talking about your brand, then don't talk to investors. That stream should talk to consumers. Arindam Paul, who runs Attenberg, is talking to digital marketers.
Correct.
He doesn't talk to
Specifically.
consumers. No consumer is going to buy his fan or his whatever else he sells now because of the nature of his Amazon campaign.
Correct.
I'm
That's
sure
what
he
I
has a
think.
huge following of people
Yeah,
who
yeah,
are digital marketers.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
that's his audience. But
Very
if he wants to sell
interesting.
fans, he's actually doing too little on selling fans there. And if
Yeah.
he's listening to this podcast to wherever this might come,
Yeah.
this is free advice for
Right.
you, Arindam.
No, that's very interesting because I've never thought of this till you mentioned because I really like his posts.
Yeah.
Right?
Same here. I like
Absolutely.
it.
But I
Yeah.
think as a marketer, I sort of resonate and he talks like
No, but to be
practical
fair, he
things.
can afford to do
Yeah.
that because he's got Spring Marketing to do the actual consumer level marketing
Correct.
part. And they do a good job, fairly good job
Right.
for the fans' purpose But to be fair, he also occasionally dabbles into consumer level messaging. For instance, he spoke about the mixer grinder they launched. He went into the detailing of why they launched, what was the thought process, what were the USPs they wanted to add, which they did. So occasionally he does speak, but it's very occasional. Like he said,
And
primary audience is marketers.
See, and if you're a consumer, you're not going to filter through his marketing stuff to find
understand
that.
brand.
You're not
Yeah,
going
correct.
not going
Yeah.
to.
It's just
He
numbers
also
he's
sold
talking
the
about.
brand.
Yeah, true.
That is not going to happen.
It is serendipity that I found out
That
about.
you found it? No, that's because you follow his marketing stream. That will bubble up as well because he did write about it.
Correct.
Or he talks of a market visit, which I find interesting as a marketer.
Yeah.
Of
Not as a consumer.
How they sell packages in Coimbatore and in Tamil Nadu where you can buy a household package at your wedding for 59,000, 99,000, 1,99,000, depending on whether you want a branded washing machine, a large fridge, etc., etc. That was very interesting as a marketer consumer. It had nothing to do with the campaign. But if he's only talking about the campaign and I'm a marketer following him for marketing retail insights, then he's not the right guy.
Yeah. But again, this is something that I teach in personal branding, that you need to have one steady stream of content that you cannot run out of. For Arindam Paul, it is talking to marketers about numbers because that's what he thinks about day in and day out. How to do better numbers online, digital marketing, D2C, blah, blah, blah. That's what he knows well. And any day when he wakes up, he can talk something about it. If you probably ask him to speak about consumer insights, how he sells well, he may not be the best person because that's how he's oriented.
Right.
So it's very good. So in fact, I tell CEOs that if bird photography is what
You like.
gets you content every single day without a second thought, do that. But occasionally once a week, talk about your product, which makes sense for him or her because they don't need to really think about aaj kya likhna hai yaar. I mean, photographs hai na mera. Chalo, let's do that completely. Occasionally dabble into, because once every fortnight you can at least think of something about your product and write about. So don't force yourself to write something that you're not naturally clued into writing. You should just wake up in the morning and said, I want to write today, and don't force it to be something that is out of the ordinary.
True.
What comes naturally to you.
Yeah, and I think that also comes from a zone of passion, right? And then it doesn't feel like a chore or a work. Then
Correct.
it
It
naturally
shouldn't.
flows in.
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
True.
The chore should be once every 15 days.
Right.
Not every day.
Right.
So using another example, another popular personality is Deshpande, Bombay Shaving
Yeah,
Company.
Shantanu.
Now his stream, to me as a marketer or as an observer, is a fuzzy stream.
Yeah,
So
it
today
is
he's
anything and
he's a
everything.
little bit of everything. I used to follow him a lot on the insights into the business of D2C, men's grooming, his retail strategy, his product strategy, how he took on Gillette, etc., etc. Today his stream is all over the place.
like Anand Mahindra now. Yeah.
I don't follow him. No, Anand Mahindra has his own value and benefit, and
That's
but
his stream.
His stream is that. But Shantanu Deshpande has now become. I don't know what to follow him for. So, do I occasionally? Does he bubble up in my stream? Yes. Do I look out for him? No. Anand Mahindra too. I don't look out for, because now he's become a sort of a retired statesman of the group, and therefore is a lot less visibly active consciously,
true.
because his followership is maybe 250 times the CEO of Mahindra's, and
Correct.
therefore he lets Anisha's stream take center stage along with the Mahindra handles retweeting and amplifying it, and he consciously has stepped back. He consciously is just being the statesman observer. I'm proud of my team in Chennai, who met a minister recently and showed them an electric vehicle. Earlier he would be
I saw it,
he would be fronting it.
Yeah.
He's almost incidentally said, I'm amplifying it on my behalf,
Because he's got the numbers.
Anisha has maybe 10,000 followers and he has 10 million,
Yeah.
give or take. I mean, I haven't checked their followership,
But
but
to
it's
be
in
fair
that
to
ratio.
Shantanu, interestingly, about a month or two, maybe 3 months ago, he clearly mentioned why his timeline has become everything and anything. He literally said there is value in having a well thought out, articulated point of view on anything and everything. There is value. And from a founder's point of view, there is value in doing it. And he clearly said not everybody can pull it off. I get sometimes things wrong. I just put my foot in the mouth. But there is value in generally having a point of view which is vocal on anything and everything. So he has a point of view on L&T. He has a point of view on various things that are completely not relevant to Bombay Shaving Company at all. But he has found out that he's the kind of voice that he can be, because he has got a point of view on everything. Whether it's thought through, whether it's useful or not, it's totally different. But he thinks being vocal helps.
Right.
And he's being vocal for the sake of being vocal.
Yeah.
Things go wrong, things go right. He's okay with that.
Yeah, and I think the key is also knowing where that line is for yourself, right? Where you stop and where you don't have too many opinions.
Yeah.
For someone like Shantanu, maybe he's comfortable having it.
Having all the opinions on everything
yeah.
completely. He's almost like Sasta Trump, like Sasta Elon Musk kind of stuff. He's got a point of view in anything and
Yeah,
everything. Of course, Elon Musk has point of view on various countries also, but he has not gone to that level.
Yeah.
But he's got a point of view in everything, and he thinks that there is value because there is not enough people who take a point of view on most things.
Yeah, and
everybody is playing politically safe, basically.
True. And I also think today's youngsters, and when I speak to the fresh graduates, right, they levitate towards status a lot. So if it's a founder, CEO tag, and if he has opinion on many things, automatically I think you tend to garner more followers than someone who operates in a niche.
Correct.
Right. And if you're in a niche, you get maybe people like us, for example, liking Arindam's post. But if you talk to an average college graduate, they
They'll talk
probably
about
don't know.
Shantanu.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Correct.
So I think that's also what they're playing to. And I think today, unfortunately, this is one of the things I don't like, despite being in the digital space, which is it's very, very, very metric driven. I won't name who, but I did a collab with somebody, a young entrepreneur, and we did a series of posts on Instagram together. And there was one particular post that he said, hey, he called up, Jeetu from my team and said, we can't do this. I was like, why? It's doing well. First hour was not too bad. He's like, no, my engagement rate on your posts that I collab is lesser than the average I get otherwise on my feed.
Wow.
I was like, oh,
That's
okay.
specific.
Yeah, that's specific, right? So I was like, okay, I said, cool, it's the way you want to do it, fine. But that's the world that they come from, which is that their society or that group of friends or the community that they're in, their status there is defined by who you follow, what kind of numbers you get, what's your engagement rate on your reel. It's stuff like that, unfortunately. But that is real effect among some of the people. The ones who are, I don't know if there are, high achieving creators who got 3 million, 4 million followers of age 20, 21 who think differently, but a lot of them think this way. So it's kind of a little scary because he and I were having a conversation and he's like, oh, so how many followers do you want? I said, I don't care because I think it's the secondary thing. I mean,
Correct.
I love conversations more than the dopamine that somebody will get, on the follow or the comment that they leave. So I think it's a different world too. So for that kind of an audience, I feel having this large set of opinions and a lot of people, engaging with you, etc., probably works.
See, it's also, I think, we are now in a in many, the ecosystem, like you mentioned, is like, the planetary ecosystem. So there are many echo chambers. So for instance, Shantanu Deshpande and some young founders may be looked upon by a certain age and an audience.
Yeah.
When was the last time Anand Mahendra picks up on a comment that Shantanu Deshpande made? Their streams don't cross. It doesn't enter. Now, someone like us who is older probably says Shantanu Deshpande has a lot less gravitas than an Anand Mahendra.
But I think it's myopic because they're not looking at his audience.
No, and he would get a lot more gravitas overall if some more traditional people also picked up on it, and that cross-fertilization happened.
Correct.
So, for instance, I read a lot more of what Harsh Mariwala says than his son. And Harsh Mariwala is 75 years old. So forget about, talking of 50 or whatever. He's 75 and he has embraced the medium on his own terms.
Like Ratan Tata.
On his own terms. Ratan Tata was far less visible. Harsh Mariwala is a lot more
visible.
More visible. Surprisingly, they didn't talk to him about the 90 hours, or he chose not to answer. So I see a lot of that. A lot of echo chambers where the trending is seen as trending. And I always tell at least young business owners, young brand managers, there's a world beyond your Instagram, trending.
Yeah.
I work with organic food brands where everyone's buzzing about organic, but everyone who's actually buying stuff is buying non-organic. So, which is why a company like Marico that has a lot of gray hair like us in their teams actually is now using Saffola on a healthier for you platform rather than a healthy or an organic platform. It's healthier than everything else. That market will be 50,000 crores. These Instagram bubbles will be tiny, and Marico being Marico has a couple of them in their top pocket, side pocket anyway.
Correct.
For the heck of it.
It doesn't matter.
And they're turning their brands into what they do well. I know a young brand bought by a very large Indian conglomerate who is the largest commodity buyer in the country. Okay, buys at scale. So they can sell you almonds at 50 rupees a kilo and still make money. That's the scale at which they buy it. So they have actually taken this young brand that is quite talked about and visible on social media and are turning it into their branded commodity brand. Because that's the scale at which they're playing. They're not doing what that brand does originally what it did. They're just turning it into the brand for the future.
Right.
So that's a perspective.
But the thing that you mentioned about this influencer and numbers not being happy, there is a big difference between an influencer model and a personal branding model.
True.
Most people that I work with, they assume both are the same.
They're not.
And I clearly tell them saying with personal branding, you're not worried about how your individual posts, whether it's on Insta or Twitter or LinkedIn, perform. You're looking at a long-term performance. Correct. Primarily the whole motivation is inward looking from a personal branding point of view. Did you gain something what you're going to share? If you don't gain, then you are actually looking at an influencer model. You're just pandering to an audience. You need to pander to yourself if it's a personal branding model, and it's a long-term brand building that you're doing. So it's perfectly fine that some of the posts don't do well at all, but it will probably reach the 5 people who matter the most, which you probably won't know, but that's what the point is. So persist is the point with personal branding. But with influence brand, every single post has to work. And they are just trying to optimize for this post has to work and the next post has to work better than the last post. It's an endless rat race, but that's what they are in, which is perfectly fine. I'm not saying it's wrong. That's a different model.
See, influencers are media channels. Influencers with real influence are very, very few. So when you reach a influencer with 100,000, it's like my readership or my reach is 100,000. I always tell brands, treat them as a media channel. Treat them as like digital as digital billboards. They are digital billboards.
Exactly.
Do you want, to get Veer Sanghvi to talk about food? He understands food. He has credibility. His reach will be far less than some Insta food blogger, but will give far greater results. I have a client who ran a reel with a very influential food blogger and not lifestyle blogger, about 2 million following, and got about 2,000 likes or whatever. You take the percentage of that. If you actually had someone with influence who actually had 200 likes, you would actually sell your brand. At 2,000 on 2 million, you will get it. I mean, if you advertise on the highway, yes, there are 100,000 trucks passing and there are a few customers also passing. But, I think this whole thing about influencers do it. You look at the likes. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I actually go and actually see each of those followers. I had this IT client, very large IT client, who's got 50,000 followers on Twitter at one point. Okay, and he had spent 1 crore or a lot of money on a lot of stuff. So I actually studied the followers. I don't use tools or anything. I use AI, which is applied intelligence. More than artificial, because that's still in fashion and gets paid for. So when I actually saw how fake his followers were, we sat in a conference room and I made them put up their Twitter and scroll, and they were like, "Oh my God, these are all fake."
Bots, yeah.
And I made them scroll for 20 minutes. They were like, "We get the picture." I said, "You spent 1 crore, you can spend 20 minutes. It's time well spent." The guy at lunch said, "Oh my God, you really got the point home and so hard." So sometimes people don't think, oh, they have 1.7 million followers, they have 5 million followers. How many of them actually win? How many contest junkies are actually consumers? They troll you if you don't give them a prize. And yet you want to say, tag 5 friends, get a free softie or get a free burger or something.
True.
No, but I do have a counterpoint to him that, of course, followers don't matter as much as the influencers think it matters. But it's perfectly fine to use this large influencers with large following from a visibility point of view, not convincing consumers point of visibility point of view. Because it's like the front page of Times of India, which everybody sees. But not everybody is convinced at this point when they see the ad. Maybe after they see the ad, if they are in the departmental store next time, it will connect saying, "Oh, I remember seeing it in front page. Let me try this product." Maybe eventually. That's one. Second one, apart from the likes that you see, the visible likes or the people who have bothered or the bots who have bothered to like on your post pales in front of the number of people who have actually seen but not taken a digitally visible action at all, whether it's likes or reaction. That would probably be 90%. 10% is what we are scraping the top of the pudding, basically. That's about it. So that, like you said, there is a world beyond what you see digitally. That uske liye at least that visibility matters.
True.
And you may not be able to draw a line saying, we did this campaign with these 3 top influencers and from there 3 months later we saw a jump. It's a culmination of various things that you do, including this together. So there is value in looking at that also.
And those people who don't take that action, right? We have a term, we call them lurkers.
Correct. They are lurking. Correct.
Right?
They are just lurking, which is almost like what you don't see below the ocean, which is actually the bigger iceberg, not the top of the iceberg at all. That's the bottom.
Right. Picking up on one of the things you said, right, the difference between that influence and personal brand, which is so true. I also think it's a function of a lot of people not understanding what brand is in the first place, right?
True.
They think a logo is a brand, or they think making an ad is a brand. Everything is categorized under brand. And that's a interesting sort of phase we're in. This brings me to the sort of the next segment I had, which is so you both have now taken a call to, independently start working. If you look at all the reports globally on advertising market as a whole, you see how they're all losing significant market share, right? The parent company, WPP of Ogilvy, was at 23 billion, I think, around the time that you left. And today they're probably at 11 or 12, something on those lines.
I was not responsible.
Right. I thought maybe you left and then, things changed. So, but if you look across the industry, that's what's happening. A lot of it is being in-housed. A lot of it is going to consultants. A lot of it is going to fractional CMOs.
True.
There's a lot of that's happening now. And what do you think has changed? Because when I speak to people who have been in advertising for maybe 30 years, 40 years, one thing I sort of hear often is that we were never treated as vendors, we were more partners.
Correct.
And whereas today that equation has changed to being vendors, to the point where I had a consultant who has started his agency. It's reverse. He's done the reverse of what both of you have done. Fairly young guy in his early 30s, been on the podcast a few times, Sindhu. So he has an agency now, and he was telling me, on the podcast one of the days that, it's very funny because until a year ago, when I was a consultant, I had more respect in the organization
Wow.
to today, where I'm running an agency and somehow I'm sort of demeaned for whatever reason it is. He doesn't know. And we went into why that could be, but this is an actual problem a lot of them face. So what has changed in maybe the last 10, 15, 20 years or so in that agency client dynamics?
Everything has changed right from you. I mean, there is a larger change basically because everything is fleeting faster. Even we are actually promising 10 minutes hot food these days. And there is, of course, a lot of anger about how can you cook food in 10 minutes, which is hot and fresh and healthy. Of course, you can't. You have to have some packaged ready stuff through which you can deliver. So if food can be delivered in 10 minutes, everything is 10 minutes these days. If food can be delivered in 10 minutes, even relationships from an advertising or a marketing communication point of view has come to that level. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. It's something pointed, people ask and they get something pointed, which is okay. But that's just one model. There are still brands that work on a very long term. For instance, Cadbury's has been with Ogilvy for about 50 plus years in India, which is a very, very long time. And I think even Asian Paints has been there with them for 30 years. So there are long term relationships, but I'm sure even they would be, I mean, even an Asian Paints would be looking at a smaller, nimbler, in quotes, agency to do something pointed as just a Valentine's Day campaign.
Right.
Because idea came from them, which is sharper kind of stuff. So I think in terms of overall patience levels, everything has come down. For long term, patience levels has come down basically.
Right.
And that's probably mirroring even in advertising relationships, I think.
Right.
So I think the problem is a little more endemic. What Karthik said is correct at today's day and age, but I think the quality of people entering advertising is dropping frighteningly and very fast. I'll give you an example, okay? Anand Halve was one of my mentors who hired me in my first job, joined Lintas in 1977. And he's told a story, and I'm repeating it. In 1977, the difference between the stipend management trainees got in Lintas, Hindustan Levers then, and TAS, Tata Administrative Service, was 100 rupees. And that's why the best people who came out of and he came out of IIM Ahmedabad, also went into advertising or went into corporate work, paying well. Today, you're getting the absolute leftovers who are joining advertising, and they will bubble up and become the heads of agencies. So they are not bringing that quality any longer. Mica modified themselves from a communication ad agency focused course to now a MBA effectively. They were the first step in the 90s to actually say we've identified this problem and we need to have better people entering advertising. The first few years or the first 10 or 15 years, that was actually the case. Someone who's at Ogilvy that Karthik knows, Kunal Jeswani, was from one of the first batches. He was a management trainee at Enterprise, and because Anand Halve worked there the first 4 or 5 years, interestingly, Enterprise, which is a creative agency, hired the most from Mica, even beating Lintas, because he says, if we don't bring the people here, how will they start? So talent is a question. It's terrible. Today you have people who think the world of marketing is reels. Today they think the world of marketing is hashtags. Today they think trending is marketing. They think their little Insta bubble is the world of consumers. They don't understand that. Forget about Koramangala and Kolhapur is different. They just don't understand those stories. So that's the first point. The second point is the commoditization of everything. People asking for 10-minute service. Can you do it cheaper? And agencies bending to that. In the good old days, agency heads met client heads, and Ogilvy has that relationship because the heads of Ogilvy met the heads of Asian Paints. I mean, I have stories from people in Ogilvy who says, Piyush Pandey met CMO or the CEO of Cadbury, and on Monday morning they get a call saying we need to make an ad film. No one on either side, the brand team or the client team, knew it. Agencies, they just had to shoot a film. Piyush had sold it, it was done, it got executed. That was the stature. Today, CEOs of agencies are lucky if they meet the CMO once a year of a reasonably large company. They are making pitches to social media teams who are looking at Instagram, and therefore their briefs are that. So it's a horses and courses. I mean, today the agencies who stand up for what they believe are really not there.
Yeah.
So you want a video, we want it. You want it in 6 seconds, you want it. You want your brand like this, you want it. Mohammed Khan, who was the head of my first agency, used to actually tell clients that I don't tell you how to make your bloody product. You don't tell me how to make my bloody advertising. And clients actually respected him for it. Today you're like, sir, what do you want, sir? Where do you want the logo? Make the logo bigger, sir. What do you want? You want Starburst? You want your little daughter coming in the video? Wo bhi kar lenge, sir. Right. Which influencer you want to work with? We'll sign up, sir. You already signed up. We'll call them, sir.
Yeah.
The yes, sir, Giri is too high, I think, today.
True. I also have another unpopular opinion, which is that I think entrepreneurs like myself have contributed to that, I feel. Because the barrier to entry was so low at one point in offering social digital services that you could sit in a cafe or somewhere and then put together a bunch of freelancers and start off or in a garage or whatever. And you didn't need to understand or learn any of the principles of advertising to make a post work on Facebook. You need to understand the principles of Facebook's algorithm, essentially.
Which is very different from brand perspective.
Yes,
right? And I think, and I keep telling, because first 2 years, to be very honest, even I found this opportunity and I started, and then I realized this probably doesn't work. And, I had a very interesting meeting with this person called Arvind Hegde, who used to be with Ray and Keshavan. He was the head of business after WBB had acquired it. Today he runs Dun & Partners. It's a strategy and design firm. And he said this beautiful thing to me in one of the interactions we had. He said, and I was just picking his brains in general, and he was saying, you can choose who you want to be in the world. So he said, you can be an Ogilvy, and he gave me an example. 360-degree services, salesman, you're big, large, and you're trying to sell the creative service. I said, you can be JWT, which is a different version of Ogilvy in general, but doing bits and pieces the same. Or he said you can be something like a WiredIn and Kennedy. And I was like, oh, interesting. And then I looked up, and it's a choice, right? And that was sort of a gateway. And then it sent me into that rabbit hole of trying to understand why organizations like an Ogilvy and a WiredIn and Kennedy are different and what makes them different. And I spent a lot of time on that. And then I realized, okay, we have to overhaul the organization. And I did that. So we looked at everything from a brand pyramid of bottom up, which is more distribution first, then comes brand thought, to then flipping the pyramid and saying, now we'll be brand first and then distribution, right? What I realized in that journey of making it brand to distribution first, second model is that the world is now flipping backwards because thanks to venture funded businesses that everyone wants hypergrowth and blitz scaling is what everyone sort of tries, right? So it's more about, let's put something out there, let's see if it is working, then we'll iterate on the way, a bit like what tech does, right?
Correct, exactly.
And I think
throw something on the wall, let's see if it sticks.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of marketers who don't come from that art and marketing background. They're science guys.
Correct.
Right? They come from engineering, and unfortunately they don't have a good orientation system into brand. So they look at everything the way they look at product and tech, and they look at communication the same way, which is so flawed. But then they are in these roles in these organizations who at a very young age, because of their degrees from fancy universities, get such high pay and salary that they don't find the need to learn or unlearn. And that, it's like a hamster wheel. It's just flowing then, right? Or sort of is on the rampage mode.
Which is one point there, because he said agencies say yes to everything, or they ask what do you want and we will do it. Kind of. To be fair to those agencies, they have probably not defined their own agency brand as sharply as they do client brands. If they have not done it, and I'm not saying it's wrong, if they say no to whatever the client is asking, there are 10 agencies who will say yes to them. So they are looking at, looking at saying, can we make money now and probably think about a product later, or can we think about a product and sustain somehow for the next 2 years and then eventually build a brand? It's a choice they have to make, and it depends on various other factors. Do they have the runway to not have as much business or P&L for 2 years sustenance? If they don't, they just have to say yes. But again, as he said, the problem is if you keep saying yes to everything, you're just a commodity. It doesn't matter.
And I'll tell you how an agency is, the stature of an agency and where it's gone. Lintas, back in the day when Alec Padamsee was CEO, used to have a monthly board meeting of its board, at which they used to discuss one client's business and advertising. Clients used to pitch to Lintas and make presentations that we want to feature in your board meeting. So, because if your board talks about my brand, somebody will come with a great idea for me. That is the stature of Alec Padamsee, that brand managers would say, can we make a presentation? Will you work with us to make a presentation? Today, clients hire client service directors on their retainer to make PowerPoint presentations for their CMOs. Right. They are on retainer, paid the full price, but they effectively are only doing client presentation decks at that level.
Yeah.
And because they don't see them as any more.
Yeah.
Another question you asked, I think, which we kind of missed in this discussion, is this insourcing and outsourcing. It isn't new. Again, I kind of give you an old example. In the 80s, the Taj actually hired a senior creative director from HTA, who actually created an in-house studio, which did all the in-house collateral and below-the-line brochures. And that continued for many, many years. I mean, Godrej
they
today
worked with an agency.
They worked with many agencies, but they brought that part of it in-house because they said this is more effective.
Yeah.
They had Frank Simoes, they had Rediffusion, they had many agencies back then, but they got this in-source part of some business. So they said this is more agile.
Optimal, yeah.
Agencies have never been very happy at doing what I call kitsch work, which is brochures. They do the cover design, but you tell them now change this caption, do this. They hate that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't excite the creative juices. That's why agencies do annual report design themes and win global awards on it, but they never do the layout of the annual report. Now you don't need to, but in the days it needed to be formatted, it went to one formatting shop.
Correct.
To do those
DTP guy.
DTP guy. It's a DTP job. Yeah.
Right. So, in this, the reason why the state of the marketing advertising industry is the way it is because the market is, corrected itself, or it's supplying to where the demand is essentially.
Correct.
And I think that's a reality of where things are. So I'm sure agencies also historically did a few things wrong, right? In terms of the way they maybe didn't adapt to digital, maybe is one, or to technology. I there's this funny thing. I'm a big fan of Mad Men. The show changed.
Who isn't?
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's funny. A lot of people today in advertising have never watched Mad Men, which I find shocking because why would you not? It's about your profession in its some at a certain period in time when it is.
But if you probably ask somebody who's studying marketing communications now, they would, who would be very, very young, probably about 19 or 20, they would say that this pertains to a very different world of marketing, which doesn't apply today at all.
But, I think I disagree because when I watched that...
And the thing is, I also disagree, but still.
Because when I was watching the show, and I, to be honest, had a lot of time in COVID, I binged it during March and
totally worth binge watching. Yeah.
Right, and I did it, and it's not easy. The first season is quite hard.
Correct.
It's actually
dull. Yeah.
At the end of it, you understand it's not about advertising. It's about a guy in advertising.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So that initial season is hard, but then after that you'd get through. But in that there's a scene I think in the later seasons when they bring in the first computer in the agency. And I think Harry Crane is in charge of it, and then and the other guys are talking. They're like, what is going to replace us? And you can see inside the agency, there's a bit of that resistance to this computer that's coming.
Yeah.
And it's I think the late 60s, if I'm not wrong, somewhere where it is. So similarly, I'm sure in the real world, a lot of agencies and individuals and creatives or strategists have sort of dismissed things, saying that this is the fad, right? And I believe social media was one of those things in the early days. Of people like, that's just social. It's not important.
It was seen as a fad. In fact, I have an anecdote which is similar to your Mad Men analogy. It was a planner in one of the agencies that I've been. I don't want to name the agency. The planner was handling a children's brand. Children's confectionery, eatable kind of brand. Fairly large, well-known brand. And at one point when we were just brainstorming ideas, I had just made a casual remark on saying, sounds very Enid Blyton-ish. And she actually asked me very seriously, who is Enid Blyton? And my jaw just dropped to the ground. So the thing is, it's worth laughing back then, but now I think she may be completely right, because today's kids, this was about a decade ago, and decade ago probably kids were still reading Enid Blyton. I don't know whether today's kids read Enid Blyton or watch YouTube more often. I don't think whether they even read at all in the first place. So today's kids probably won't even know who Enid Blyton is. They would probably know what Skibidi toilet is. Nothing else they would know at all, because the consumption patterns have completely changed. Back then I was shocked that they didn't know Enid Blyton. But now I won't even be shocked that it's just a vestige of the past. It doesn't make sense. But you don't need to hold on to it.
But an interesting point, it's not is the recall and memorability.
Yeah.
So over 25 years ago, there was this family friend who had two daughters who were 4 and 9. And I gave them an Enid Blyton each. Okay. 25 years later, I'm the Enid Blyton uncle.
Wow.
They must have got hundreds of gifts more valuable than an Enid Blyton book from hundreds of people who have met them and meet them regularly. I meet them once in 5 years. I am their Enid Blyton uncle 25 years later. No kid today is going to say, you gave me that game on something. Now that's called recall and memorability. Wow. I mean, long live Enid Blyton in that generation.
Right, but you know what you said is so true about the kids today not reading and not watching. It's absolutely right. It's tough to get them into watching anything because now everything is about having a second screen at hand, right? So they have a TV, but they're on the phone. They're watching something on iPad. They have a phone, laptop, phone. It's crazy. But yeah, I think like again, I fell in the middle of all of this. I think I went on Facebook for the first time at 16. Like I went on Instagram at 23. So I essentially very late. I've only been on Instagram for 10 years, to be honest. Right? So I was telling this to someone recently and he was like, wow, and he couldn't believe it, the kid.
They're born on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a very different world. But I want to ask you, what was the first, do you remember the first moment in your careers when someone spoke to you or you heard about this digital being this next thing? And what was that like? What did you think?
Okay, so next thing I don't know, but I personally, having been in digital now, whatever you call it, started in what was called internet marketing for 25 years.
That's what
I have not been an early adopter.
Right.
I'm an observe, and whether I adopt at all something, I may not adopt it.
Depends.
But what I do, I absorb, I watch, and I draw parallels that are valuable. So it's not about what's the next thing. It's about what in the next thing is applicable today. What in the next thing can get modified in some other environment. And I think that's what I've learned and done well in my life, in my career. What I call not best practices, I call next practices, which is take what is working somewhere and see how you can use it somewhere else and apply it. And cross-industry learnings. If hospitality bookings worked in a certain way, what can that do for your brand? If e-commerce is working, what can that do in your retail experience? Because people are there's familiarity. So I think I've never had the fear of what's next. I've also never had the fear of being replaced, maybe because I got in at it at such a stage. At that time, I didn't know the eye of internet, and I figured it out as I went along. And like some people have said, I've built my own brand of internet digital marketing that is uniquely my brand. It is embedded in what's happening around, but is it conventionally what is happening around? No. And I think embracing what's new and marrying it to what's current and drawing on the past is very, very important. I think too many of us think the past is boring, the past is old-fashioned, the past is whatever, which is, I think, a big, big problem. Everybody kind of looks at it. Suddenly, everyone is saying we need to do a 6-second bumper. A couple of, the Fevicol ad with the fisherman and the rod that he puts in. That's a 10-second ad.
Yeah.
That was a 10-second ad, 100 years ago, long before someone told someone in Ogilvy that, 10 seconds is attention span. He didn't need more than 10 seconds. Yeah. A more recent ad, which is WD-40, which is done by
6 seconds.
6 seconds.
Each.
And the reason I actually show it to people is not for the 6-second ad. It not only has the product function, which is, taking off rust from the wood, it has a twist in the tail all in 6 seconds.
In 6 seconds.
And
the last 2 seconds are the twist.
Is a twist. In 6 seconds. In 6 seconds, you can do that in 6 seconds. Another campaign I was showing, a young creative who was about in his mid-20s, is the Tata Sky Chota Recharge campaign from IPL of 2015.
Yeah.
Watch it later. There's this Kashmiri boy who runs a store in Kashmir, and this girl who comes in every day.
Yeah.
They ran one ad a day for 25 days of IPL. Those were maybe 30 seconds. The first ad was 90 seconds. But it could work in 6 seconds, in 10 seconds, as bumpers in 15 seconds. So actually drawing from the past and applying the tools of today is the smarter thing than becoming a slave to the tools. At some point, there were kids who said we are TikTok specialists. You might have hired a few TikTok specialists. They'd be jobless if they didn't understand the nuance of marketing, consumers, and brands. Because tomorrow, what happens if Instagram closes down?
Yeah.
True.
Very true.
A lot of agencies will shut down. A lot of people will have to go back to their farms or wherever they came from.
Yeah. That's very true, right? Like what you mentioned, which is take the tools of today and apply the basics and the fundamentals of yesterday.
Yeah.
The problem I see a lot is that I feel that basics is not there. In fact,
because of it, they're not able to apply anything.
Yeah, and learning is also hard because I remember, there's only so much you can learn from YouTube.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you definitely need to be in an environment that stimulates that kind of thinking. Otherwise, it's, especially if you're a creative.
Yeah.
I think otherwise, if you're just doing performance marketing or any other sides of, say today's what is popular, influencer, etc., is still doable. But on creative thinking, on brand strategy, you really have to be in those environments. So I think that's also sort of a problem where I think people are not getting access and it's not easy.
Yeah.
Like I keep telling people, if anyone who's in their 20s and comes and tells me that they're an expert on brand, I will not take them seriously. It's nothing about, any kind of prejudice, but it's a craft. Craft does not come easy. It takes time to develop.
To practice.
But part of it is also how people are treated. So today, everybody with 2 years experience is head-brand, head-social media. So they believe they're head.
Yeah.
In our old days, in 4 years of my agency life, I went from trainee account executive to junior account executive. And the only thing that changed in 6 months was I got business cards. That's it. And I knew how to take jam paper out of the Xerox machine, and a fax machine. Earlier, the peon was smarter than me for the first 3 months because at 10 in the night, when the fax is jammed and you have to send it to the client, you realize how helpless you are. And the peon could actually do it. He would trundle in half drunk and, unjam the printer. I could go home after sending the fax. I left as senior account executive. Today, in 4 years, you're like vice president brand in an agency. And I've talked to agency founders and they say, you can't give money, you give title.
Yeah.
And senior founders. So it's true.
So how do you, if you had the power to fix this and balance this out, because this is the too many moving parts which are all contributing to the problem, right? So where does one start if you are to fix this from the lens of what's right for advertising?
So since you run an agency, let's kind of come from your perspective. Let's give you unsolicited advice on your time. Right. Okay. It's actually standing up for what ought to be done rather than bending backwards every single time. If people learn by observation, whether you're a 5-year-old kid or you're a 5-month-old person in an agency, you learn by observation. I mean, there's a tweet stream I was part of yesterday where I said, why should grandstanding and doing the right thing be for optics? It should be the way you do things. But I grew up in an work environment where I saw that. The first time a vendor asked for my home address to send me a Diwali sweet, I said, send it to the office. Not realizing then he wanted to send me something valuable because I was a very, very large client for him, the largest client in the country in that category. In airport translights. We spent 2 crores in the 90s, which is a lot of money.
Huge.
And then he didn't know what to do, so he sent me 3 kilos of Kesar Kaju Katli in the office, trying to ramp up the value. And I was an impoverished paying guest then, so I ate half of it for dinner a few nights, and I got sick of it and gave it to colleagues after 4 days. So standing up for what it is, standing up to clients, demanding to meet the founder, demanding to meet the CEO, telling him it will be worth your while, doing that, walking away, and throwing your people out in the market. When was the last time your team went into parts of Bangalore retail market? When did they go to Mandwa? When did you send them to Mangalore? See how that market works. When did they last go to, Mosque Road and see retail over there? So the fault lies at the head.
Right. True.
It's
true. And in fact, a lot of it also comes from this ability of saying no. And that means that you need to fundamentally have a great business, right? Because, they're not at the mercy of taking anything just to keep your payroll running.
Correct.
I think that is another problem I've noticed in a lot of agencies.
It's
also
a practical problem.
Yeah. Right. See, the global ones, to be honest, I don't think have that problem. I think it's a matter of the minute you're a publicly listed organization, then you pander to the stock market. Then it's actually not about, saying no, but it's about keeping those metrics, those stock market metrics alive, which is profitability and your earnings per share and all of that stuff. And then you get into that rat race. Independent agencies inherently, I feel, don't build good business model with great bank balance, then they're in that boat again, where then they again have to take up, right?
Correct.
And that's the problem. So a lot of it, I think, starts from top down, where I think as a say the ownership group or the entrepreneur or the founder, you have to then set that principle down, right? Which is why I resonated with that Wyden and Kennedy model, because I think they did a lot of those things right. But I believe, that's probably one thing that will lead to a lot of this correction.
See, if you're paying your team 24 days a month, okay, and you can try this. Tell them they need to go in the market and learn something 4 days a month. You'll still earn the money you're earning because they're not actually putting in 24 days of work to get paid for 24 days. But they will be a lot richer in their ability to actually look beyond, and it can actually change the way things are done. Because they'll talk to a client differently. They'll say, I actually know, I actually saw. There's this founder of a confectionery brand I work with, who is a large brand, okay, 40, 50, 60, 80 crores. So not startup, very large gifting brand. So people get it in a Diwali gift, and they say our brand is very well known. I took the founders to stores in Bombay, and I said, where is your brand? And they actually looked and they were like, where is it? They were looking on the store. Then we went into a rebranding exercise where the packaging is a lot more attractive. But they thought they didn't need packaging. Their logo was in italics because they thought everybody knew their logo. Of course, you know it if it's 6 inches away from your nose, but in a store, you don't know it. The colors were wrong. The lighting in the store was wrong. And they took me to stores. I didn't take them. I said, you pick the store and let's look for your brand.
Right.
Yeah.
So very interesting. I spent about 2 years before virality at a consulting from a boutique one, small, they did cross-border, go-to-market, whatever, in that region. I remember having a debate with my then boss about something working from a creative lens, a creative essentially. And he literally said, and we were back then on Level Road, and he said, get out and walk down the street with your laptop. Get me opinion on the street, what people think of this one creative. Let's not debate, because we were on a deadlock. And I remember my colleague and I then took it as a challenge. And we were very happy going down and doing, also because I feel I started my career in sales. So I was okay with
equivalent of skills.
I was okay with those interactions. Today what I've realized is a lot of the advertising professionals come into advertising knowing that it's a environment where you don't have to be out on the street. They think that way. And they're happy, sitting in a room and then doing, going through Reddit threads or Twitter threads and in mining insights than actually getting out on the street. Which also is a reflection of today's audience, because...
But a snapshot of it.
Right? Because if that need for wanting things at your doorstep or wanting it quickly, or Netflix releasing 15 episodes at once rather than waiting every week, is all somewhere, entwined into the kind of culture we're in today. So the thing is, then if the audience has changed like that, and then does it mean that this is the future of advertising the way it is going right now?
So again, when you say the audience, the microcosm of the audience has changed. The audience in Indira Nagar Defense Colony has changed. Not in Indirapuram in Patna. But audience. I mean, Unilever and ITC and others have said winning in many Indias, WIMI. India is not a country. India is 5 Europes. And there are many countries. Do you treat Finland the same as you treat Spain? Why would you treat Bihar the same as you treat Bangalore? So today people think their audience is on Insta. The buyers are on Amazon. No, the world is beyond them. Fair and handsome can call themselves smart and handsome. That doesn't still change matrimonial ads saying Gori, Chitti and Fair. Okay, Dove can run a campaign in 3 metro-centric Sunday newspapers saying real beauty, but the wedding market is not changing. Girls still go for a fairness tan. Boys still go for what they need to go. It's not changing. Is there a better buzz? Is there a younger audience that will travel from small town India, get exposed? Yes. Is it a good step in that direction? Yes. So I think today sending people out and forcing people to go. In our agencies days, we needed to go market working with the sales guy of a client. Today, you just go on Insta and check some reels and do some, and you hack some stats and do it. Talk to real people. People who put posts and reviews on Amazon are not real, because every time I've not bought a product because they're bad reviews, or bought a product because they're good or bad reviews, the person reviewing is not me.
It's a stranger.
Yeah. Someone saying this phone is not good is got a different perspective. It may be perfectly fine. But if you actually go out there, see how people are buying, stand in a store, see how people are buying tea, see how they are ordering in a McDonald's, then you'll understand what makes people order, what dynamic is happening on the side, what are they watching. Watch people in their real environment. I had a colleague in strategy who actually he created a series on Twitter some years ago, observing people on the Delhi metro. And he said, I will look at them, I'll take a picture and decide what life stage they are at, what bag they are using. I learned the same thing while traveling on Bombay local trains many years ago. The difference between first class and general compartment is, of course, in one line, in one you have DO and the other you have BO, body odor and deodorant, because that's one, because of just the crowd. But you could actually see, if you travel late night on a first class train, the stockbroker going home because he stays far away had a high design bag. He wore a gold watch. He had a Mont Blanc pen. He wore a Louis Philippe shirt. His shoes were good, but he travels on the train and he, with practiced ease, toss his bag up there. Some of the second class guys, they have a little jhola, plastic bag. They are wearing Cambridge shirts. It's very, very fascinating. You just watch those people. They're not on Instagram.
Right.
And they are the buyers who are going to your mall. They are the buyers who are buying from Zara. They are the guys who are buying products. When I worked markets in Bombay, I discovered something called 1 gram gold jewelry. There are jewelry stores in the heart of Dadar and Parel that sell 1 gram gold jewelry. So it's an artificial jewelry set, but they are plated with 1 gram of gold. There is a huge market of people who need to give gold, but all they can afford is 1 gram of gold. I didn't even know such a thing exists until I went there. Living in a good locality of Bangalore some years ago, at 8:30 in the night, the vegetable seller who sells on push carts would place on the ground old vegetables or slightly damaged vegetables in clusters. So once I just stood there watching, why are they in clusters? If she was selling a bunch for 10 rupees and 20 rupees, and in the bunch there could be 2 onions, 1 potato, and there were people who say, I can spend 20 rupees on making dinner for my family, so I will take a brinjal, 2 potatoes and something. And if that lady had more damaged stuff, maybe you'll get a more expensive vegetable. That's a thousands of crore market.
Because they have to sell it by night.
But we think the only market is on an Instamart saying harvested at 5 a.m. He's doing exactly the same thing. You walk into Theo Roma's first store in Colaba in Bombay. I used to live there. I used to go there every day after 8:30 because after 8:30 a bakery will give you 50% off on that day's stuff because he can't sell it the next day.
Same
long
day
before Instamart. Long before Instamart, buy one, get one, 9 p.m. offers existed.
The same thing, basically.
The same thing existed. So the more things change, the more they don't. They only get maybe connected better. You are able to reach further, faster. Right. Things like that.
But I also think there is a much deeper problem than what he said. So he said, throw people out to Mask Road and ask them to observe. I don't think a 23-year-old today would even know what to observe in the first place. True. Because they've just so digitally native. They know only to observe what happens in a reel or what happens in a Reddit thread. They won't have any clue what to observe. For instance, if you ask somebody who's 20, say, pick 20 colleges to apply for your PG, they have no clue. They can do a Google search, but even a Google search, they will say that I've got a lot of things. Yeah. How do I decide? Yeah. What do I select? So you need to be a lot more pointed. It's the same Enid Blyton problem. We can be aghast that they don't know Enid Blyton, but we need to help them consume better. And for that, you need to literally tell them, if you go to Mosque Road, here are the 5 things you need to look at. He has the benefit of looking at a larger picture because he has come from that background. A 23-year-old kid does not have the benefit of looking at the larger picture. They don't even know the larger picture exists. Their whole world exists on YouTube and Insta and TikTok, which got banned anyway. Yeah. So I won't blame them if they say that, yeah, I went to Mosque Road, but I had no clue what to look at. So you probably need to feed them, I think.
Yeah, but honestly, if you send a 23-year-old, let them look at it through their lenses. So I'll tell you, today when I go to a market and I go with a management trainee, we are observing different things, okay? And understandable, my perspective may be deeper. But when I was 23 years old, I used to handle a brand called Lakme Exotica Talc. And I was in a South Bombay agency that did typical South Bombay good-looking stuff. And one of the point of purchase things we had to do was a trial dispenser. So basically, you could try the talc and buy it. And we did one, and we got feedback from the client saying our sales guys are saying no one is trying and no one is buying. So I was promptly sent, go to Ghatkopar, go here, go there with the sales guy 2 days and see what they're doing. And I'm telling you this story almost 30 years after. I was 23 then, and at that point it didn't strike me as much, but it's a lesson which I kind of tell people. The sales guy had taken a felt pen and said, try one, buy one, exclamation, 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 like 6 times. Like bad posts on social media today. Okay. And people were selling. So I just took that dispenser back and we made an elegant try one, buy one message. But basically our message was too clever. So at that point, I didn't know what I was looking for, but it struck me. And I just joined the dots. Today, I use that example 30 years later saying, I had another client in my very early days at Blue Dart Express, and he was a marketing guy, good marketing guy. He's a happiness coach now. Okay, doing very, very well for himself. So he, typically agencies will go with very clever. The logo is incidental. The visual is big. The headline is smart, and we were doing the same. So he taught me one very good, important thing. He said, "This is too latent. Make it blatant." And that has stuck with me. Today, when I wear a hat as an advisor for a brand, I tell them, "Ye latent hai, blatant pa now." This message needs to come.
Make it obvious.
In your first 6 seconds, tell them what the brand is. Don't tell them later. I think the Fredo founder did a video on a chair recently, which he said he shot internally and said, "What do you think?"
Yeah.
A 1 minute, 2 minute long video. So I commented, he never got back to me. I said, it'd be interesting to observe how many people dropped off in 15 seconds, watch 15 to 30 seconds, watch up to 60 seconds and watch the rest. Now, if he's smart, he'll get it. But his messaging started after 50 seconds. He's wasted it. His dropout will be very, very high. And I've done this with clients. I tell them this and then they say, "No, I will prove you wrong." And I go to YouTube and I ask them to check for 15 seconds views for 11-minute view. And I'm very anal about these things. I won't stop at 1 minute and plus. I will do 6 minutes, 15 to 6:30. I labor the point sometimes to really get it home. Right. Because the fact that you spend thousands of rupees or crores of rupees casually means you really need that hammered back. Sometimes.
Right.
So people forget that.
So if they ever want to flip the switch and make it aspirational, right? If they want to go, would it be easy considering the amount or the way they've grown right now?
So how much have they grown? I mean, again, is
Right.
it an echo
legacy.
chamber? How
Yeah,
many people? How strong is their legacy? The echo chamber of problem solution maybe will have a dissonance for a little while, but that will change.
The rest of the people won't care.
No, rest of the people won't care. I don't care for the brand because I don't have a neck pain. Tomorrow, if I have a neck pain, I will look out for a brand and
which is appropriate for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, I know someone who had needed a coccyx pillow. Which is a specialized pillow to sit on if you have lower back pain. Now, if I know that brand as a coccyx pillow brand, and tomorrow they sell the most comfortable, pillows for home, I wouldn't even consider them. I'll think they're an ortho brand, specialized brand. So it's as easy as they want it to be. But is it 2 reels easy, 4 influencers easy, 5 hashtags easy?
Who
No,
can say?
no,
Yeah.
no. Because then if your founder will say, "Yeah, good idea.
do that."
Let's do it now. Monday morning, we'll change the next 2 reels."
Right.
These 2 experts, so-called experts, came on Sanan's podcast. Now, next month, we are going to be also doing this cool thing.
Right. So the reason I ask is because I see a lot of brands trying to grow with performance marketing as their main form of marketing, right? I don't think it works because I feel after a while it starts saturating. Like we've worked with some of the biggest brands, spent the most amount of money with one particular ed tech. We spent so much money, and the platform Spock for us was calling us and saying, "Listen, you need to pull back because
Pause.
you're breaking the algorithm. Like it's now not going to yield result. If you get one ROAS,
You
you're
have to
lucky."
put
Yeah, because the
balance.
conversation was at that time the scale of spend was so high. The conversation is, hey, what point will we get break even? Like it's literally there, right? Because growth at all costs. And I've realized this that after a while that the algorithm does not work because you're also, as a marketer, you're squeezing the life out of it, right? And the reason why all social media works is because you're in turn offering something to the platform that keeps its audience hooked.
Correct.
So from even a digital lens, it doesn't work
True.
if you do performance marketing for too much.
True.
And that's where I think today the world is at, where everyone starts with that. They're like, oh, let's put
Because
money.
they want instant numbers.
And then they are
it's
saying,
cheap.
now let's build a brand.
Yeah.
Because founders
After-
come
after-
down.
yeah.
Yeah, so
correct.
I call it flipping the pyramid. So you start with distribution first approach. So it's an inverted pyramid. Then you flip it after a few years.
Then you go to the brand.
Yeah, because Arindam Paul actually wrote a nice little a tweet or a LinkedIn post where he said, if you're sub 100 crore,
Correct. I remember this. Yeah.
distribution first is probably the way for you to go.
Correct.
But once you do get beyond 100, you need to change your approach. And I
So it's
thought,
almost like you try the market, whether it's
Yeah.
approachable or not, then you start building.
Yeah.
a brand.
See, the other thing is digital gives you extensive reach. That's the mistake people make when they go offline. They go extensive. I know a founder who said, I'm going to do 300 dispensers. I'm sending them to 10 states. I said, no, distribute them between Bandra and Andheri in Bombay. Can you be in 300 stores in Bandra and Andheri? Your brand will be built in those 300 stores.
Correct.
But by sending 10 to Bombay and 5 to Telangana and 7 to Gurgaon,
They're all
in your
completely
head,
disparate.
on your PowerPoint presentation, you're in 13 states, but you're in 0.
Yeah.
Recently, I read a post by another a veteran marketer on LinkedIn saying you can build a 100 crore brand in one city. Why are you going pan-India? You can go
Vani wrote this.
Yeah, Vani wrote this. You can build a 100 crore brand, which is true. And that's where I think founders kind of go
Agree.
wrong. The other thing, since you mentioned digital and the receding or dropping ROAS, I think a big myth which all people think, and it's one of the favorite digital metrics, especially of agencies who have high costs of acquisition, is what they call LTV, lifetime value. But this digital first audience, this digital native audience is the most promiscuous audience. They are in situationships with brands. So there's no loyalty. So in this situation, this is my brand.
They don't care about loyalty.
So the LTV doesn't exist. Channel LTV will exist. I will buy on Swiggy. I do not use Zomato. I only use Swiggy to order food. High channel loyalty, but my restaurant loyalty is a situationship. In the case of food, it's what you feel like eating. Aaj khane mein kya hai? In the case of clothes, maybe it's a little less promiscuous. But some years ago, I wrote a post that's floating around, I think, on a couple of sites saying the Tinder effect on brand, the swipe right, swipe left. The fact that I can get 50 brands on my phone in 2 minutes saves me going to 50 different stores. So today situationship is there. So your LTV myth that agencies sell is a myth.
right.
There is nothing known as LTV.
Right. No, I
But
think
again,
it's
I don't think you can even put performance marketing where we're talking about advertising, because there are only two levers that a company can operate. One is fame, second is distribution. Fame is actually mental presence, distribution is physical presence. Those are the only things that they can operate.
Right.
In which an ad agency cannot do anything about distribution. It's a company's job. You can only operate on fame. How famous can you make your client? That's the only thing you can do. Performance marketing is not about fame at all. It's about selling. It's sales, literally sales. It's not about fame at all. So advertising can affect fame. Once you do the fame, then if the product is good, which is the first step before fame and availability, if the product is good enough, then it will sell. Performance marketing is outside this whole spectrum. It's a very different thing, which you need to do. If there is a need for that, and like Arindam said, there is a scale to which you try the market, whether it's approachable and whether it actually, receives what you say or not. And then you are built enough, then you actually start building your fame, which is actually a good thing, which is what we call actually trial marketing. You try a market first. Most large brands like Hindustan Lever, ITC, they try one state or one city first before they go pan-Indian. And we have seen this quite often. I remember there was a soap called Lesansi from Hindustan Lever. It was the most awkward shaped. It was shaped like this, not a square box of a soap. It was like this. It was first launched only in Hyderabad at one place, one time in the early 90s. And I was on a school tour in Hyderabad and I noticed this weird looking soap where I am not seen anywhere at all. Then I came to know it was launched only in Hyderabad. Most of the brands, they still do a very timed specific if you open one store in Bangalore, You are just doing a trial run of Bangalore, say whether it's receptible to coffee stores or this kind of coffee alone, basically. And then once you see that there is a market, you expand on make stores.
Right.
So that's the equivalent that you can do with performance marketing. Try a market, whether it's working or not. Then you start building on fame eventually. But fame is not performance marketing at all. Both are completely different.
And the other thing I think a lot of D2C brands forget, or sometimes I see founders celebrating in their posts, is we are beating the big guy, we are beating the old guy on Amazon. You're beating him because he wants you to beat him. He's watching what you're doing and he's learning. At times he's test marketing something, and when the elephant moves, the jungle will rumble. And then he'll trample over you.
Yeah.
He won't buy
Very
you out.
easily.
He'll trample over you and crush you.
Right.
A founder recently said, I was selling lakhs and lakhs of rupees, and Amazon offered to buy me out, and I thought I'm going to beat Amazon. Amazon launched private label
They
with the
just
same
started
brand
doing,
and squeezed him dry.
Because both were buying from China. So
Both
how
were
does it
buying, and
even
Amazon has bigger buying power, and all that
simple.
Amazon needs to do, all the Amazon white label products don't pay Amazon marketing services,
Yeah.
and therefore they bump up anyway.
Yeah.
You have to pay to be seen. At some point, you will bleed.
Correct.
So when brands say, I'm beating Unilever product for product, because he's only learning, and all the large brands are now using online and Instamart as a test ground for slightly premium audiences, premium packaging. They will mainstream them only as they know. They will still have 6 million distributors, and they will still reach places by Kettuvallam in Kerala that no one will reach before anyone else. But they are using it very, very smartly today, and they're using some of these founders they acquire to actually be their watchers in that space.
Yeah.
Marico is doing this. They are saying, we let that business thrive, online thrive. It's a tiny part, but they're using it as their life petri dish of
Correct.
micro
It's a
markets.
test
Micro markets like, I have great respect for these large established brands. Not that I disrespect the younger ones, but when you deride what has been done and made people big and great, it's a little short-sighted.
And it's unethical also. In fact, I just noticed, I think the day before yesterday, there was a lot of negative chatter around a very much loved brand called Mokobara.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I
following
noticed that everybody is saying the same designs are available anywhere else,
AliExpress.
and it's half the price or 1/3 the price kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So this is the same problem. They're all buying from the same Chinese source. And even brand Mokobara clearly mentions in Amazon that is purchased from China.
Yeah.
The designs are not original to them.
And it's
so it'll lose interest.
old
Yeah.
playbook. There was this
Correct.
brand called wish.com, if anyone had followed. So they came into my attention because they were sponsoring the NBA in 2019.
Okay.
But the story is that they're the highest spenders on Facebook between 2013 to 2019, pre-COVID. And I think they spent some figure, I heard something about 6 billion worth of, I think 6 billion was worth the transactions they were doing at that point in time. And it was incredible. So it was basically, you could get like incredible deals from China. So I still have this travel bag that I bought just before COVID. I paid 800 rupees for it. It's the size looks similar to Mokobara's bags. It comes with a USB charger.
Just 800 rupees.
800 rupees because you and then I had to pay a little bit on the
Shipping,
import cost, shipping of course.
Yeah.
But there were insane deals. I remember I bought pen drives, about 100 of them, for 58 rupees, some kind of lightning deal, and it was crazy. So there's things sourced straight from China.
Yeah.
And I was talking to some friend of mine, and I incepted this idea to him. He owns a bar in Indiranagar. Funny story, he got his entire cutlery with printing imported from China through
With printing?
from AliExpress. He took that to AliExpress.
Okay.
Right? For as little as I think 57 rupees per glass.
Wow.
Which if you go to Bangalore on wholesale market and then put print on it would cost you 200.
Wow.
So some things, it's a matter of people not knowing. But I think Mokobara just spotted an opportunity
Correct,
and
it's
did
an
it.
opportunity.
And
And
talking of Mokobara, the strength of its brand and whether it exists and how strong it is will determine whether people will still seek out the brand
Yeah.
because I
Or
want
buy
to
a
be
knockoff.
or buy a knockoff.
Yeah.
So if it is built on a pricing story and the knockoff is as good, then this brand is not strong.
Correct.
But every brand can get copied. I mean, yes, you have patents. I can change a line somewhere and I can say it's not violating your patent. So that is the test of the brand.
Yeah.
Is its market the Insta chatter influentiable audience, or is there a brand that actually believes in what the brand Mokobara brings it? Is the question. And that is the acid test is will it outlast the and is it strong enough? And at some point, brands, when they heavily discount to acquire customers, are actually losing that brand strength, because at some point you become a price point buy. I worked at the Taj, and when Taj would give a discount, and if we had a stay 2 nights, get 3 nights, that offer was called stay a little longer. It was not called 3 nights for 2. It was called stay a little longer. When we gave offers on suites, it was called sweet something. So it never said discount. It said stay a little longer.
It didn't imply cheapness.
It never implied cheapness. And therefore the brand controls and carries its premium. Mokobara is saying 50% off. The moment you make your brand, take a line, put a red line through it and say off, then your premiumness goes away. I will not buy your brand at full price. I will buy it time and again at its discounted price. It's very hard to move up, especially if you start up. Once you come down, then you're swimming in the swamp.
Right. Is there any example of that kind of a brand that has sourcing from China or so, and still people are choosing to buy that brand over going to a knockoff?
I have a good example. I mean, Urban Ladder during its heydays, most of the stuff that I bought had a clear label saying made in Malaysia or imported from Malaysia, which is very standard for most furniture brands which are ready to make furniture. And I bought whole stuff from Urban Ladder. But the reason was not quality alone. It was post-sale customer service. The way they actually managed every single element of the delivery. For instance, the delivery people, 5 of them come for a sofa delivery. They do the delivery. And they have been instructed specifically to carry every single piece of garbage out of your home. You don't need to do it. They do it. And I actually want to give them a tip. They said, no, we don't want a tip. We are paid well. They go back. And then they ask you for feedback. How is it? In fact, I bought 2 bar stools, which I gave back after 1 year. And they still took it and gave me the money back, because I found out there is something wrong with them much later in life, after about 8 or 9 months, and very hesitatingly asked them saying, I just found out this, and they actually took it and gave me the money back. Of course, you can argue saying because they were so lenient with customer feedback, they don't exist anymore, or they were part of Reliance. That's a very different point of view. But I stuck to them because of not the product alone. It's the experience of buying from them and then staying with them for a longer period of time. I think that experience matters a lot, but that also costs a lot of money.
See, brand experience matters. I mean, the famous case study in all marketing books is Nordstrom. They take anything back. Whether they sell it or not, they take it back. If you said, I bought it from here, even if he didn't sell it, he takes it back quietly. Because he said, if you're delighted, I'm happy. So, a brand that doesn't discount, I was looking for a mobile phone. OnePlus doesn't discount. You go to the store, he doesn't discount. He said, this is 27,000, this is 33,000, take it or leave it. Go online, it's 27,000, it's 33,000, take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. There are a lot of leave it people. But that builds, you want the OnePlus, you will quietly lump up the 27,000.
Same with Apple. Apple doesn't discount.
It doesn't discount.
They don't.
Okay, this is creative marketing where the exchange price comes to so and so. It's like all the premium cars figured that there is a market of people who will buy on financing, but are seeing a hitch. So they said, what's a car that they are happy buying on financing? They are happy to buy the Honda Civic. Honda Civic EMI is 39,000. How do I make my BMW EMI 39,000? By doing bullet EMIs. Every year you pay me 5 lakhs and I'm giving it to you 42,000. It's 3,000 more, you're getting a BMW. But actually you're topping up 8 lakhs for 4 years. But in the ad, he came in at that price. He didn't discount. He didn't discount. There's a fine print saying bullet EMI, and if you know,
he just reframed the offer.
He reframed it brilliantly. Does not discount. Mercedes does not discount. They add value, and brands forget how to add value. They tend to give it. They tend to be transactional, and great brands, will not live past the next transaction.
It's not sale alone.
How many institutions are being built? How many brands are going to become institutions? 50 years later, how many brands will exist? That's the test. Of course, the founder is only interested in getting a valuation till his exit.
Yeah.
He's not even looking 5 years down. He's like, as long as my investors get out, I get out, I'm
Job
good.
done.
Job done. Job done.
Right.
Job done.
Got it. I have a question on a recent trend that's been on the rise, which is fractional CMOs, right? I think they're pretty much consultants, but now are more in the niche where they are looking at marketing. What are your thoughts on it? And what is creating this trend? Is it the lack of talent in the market for finding good CMOs or right CMOs, or is it a new form of evolution of gig economy, which is people are now spending, don't want to work in one organization, so are breaking up their time and then taking over? And lastly, does it work?
I think from the point of view of companies that look for fractional CMOs, that's more interesting than just people offering themselves. That is very easy. People offering them fractional is very easy.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a friend, I'm sure you must know, something like his name is Manu Prasad.
Yeah.
Manu Prasad, I'm sure you know
From
Manu Prasad.
Scriptbox.
Exactly,
I met
Scriptbox, exactly. Ex-Scriptbox guy. So he is a fractional, he brands himself as a fractional CMO. But so that's easy to understand. People branding themselves fractional CMO is understandable. So look at the psychology of the companies that want not a full-time CMO, a fractional CMO. It'll be more like a trial offer saying we cannot afford a long-term CMO's cost right now. Let's try a fractional CMO for 6 months and see how it goes. If it goes well, then let's put that money on the table and get somebody appropriate kind of stuff. So, which is a fair deal basically, because you need to prioritize where you want to spend that money if you're a new company. Or if you're a company starved of funds, you need to prioritize. Is a CMO important? Yes, of course it's important. Everybody knows it's important. But I can't afford a full-time CMO and I need to commit to that money for say 1 year, 2 year, etc. because there'll be a contract kind of. So I can't do that. Look for a fractional CMO. That option didn't exist earlier, but now it exists. So let people approach that from the point of view.
So there are 2-3 things that are driving this phenomenon now. One is a lot of people are not staying in full-time employment till they retire and therefore are in their 30s, 40s, 50s kind of moving away from it. So they are still very active, very able, very capable, but they are not retiring, number one. Number two, simply better health, better fitness, better well-being means that the age of 60 or 58 is a number, and the experience doesn't go away, and therefore you can be effective and valuable even past. So that's one trend that's kind of driving it. The other thing is people are seeing the value of gray hair as well. And some of the younger businesses are being nudged even by their investors to get adult supervision, because while they're very enthusiastic and they may have turned an idea into a profitable business and hired 40, 50, 400, 800 people and built crores of rupees, which the fractional CMOs they hire may not be doing themselves. Somewhere they need to be reined in, somewhere they need that. Even companies like Facebook and Yahoo and all had adult supervision, someone who's sitting over there, knock, knock, don't say this, say this. Eric Schmidt, whatever, many of them. Adult supervision is a good thing, experience. Also, I think the value of this fractional cost, people have realized, and I keep telling people, I said, there's some large company saying, why don't you work with me? I said, I know you can pay CTC, but your office serves trashy coffee. And honestly, if I'm sitting there 20 days a month, I'm not working 20 days a month. I'm actually calling reviews and trying to be busy. But if I brief an agency, they're going to come back after 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, what am I doing? I'm keeping busy. I have a nice fancy office and I'll travel somewhere, They've realized the value of paying for the years, not the hours or days. That's where it is. So, where we argue with a client who says, give me a discount. I said, the fact that I can tell you in 5 minutes what's wrong with your marketing is because I've done it for 35 years. A doctor who takes 2 seconds to look at your x-ray is more valuable than someone who kills you while trying to figure what's wrong with you. In the case of a brand, it's a brand death. And there are clients who understand. The large client spending over 1.5 crore a month a few years ago on performance marketing said, will you take a look and make it more effective? So I said, send me a report. And I said, send me the Excel sheet. Don't send me the agency report, which is a extract of an extract of an extract.
Puffed up.
They had 50,001 keywords they were targeting. I remember because I actually checked. I don't have tools and all. I only use applied intelligence. I actually scrolled, and at the end of my exercise, I showed them 73 keywords they should be putting their money behind. It was in front of them on that thing. It was a top 4 network agency that we, of course, ceremoniously dumped and hired a new one because they were like, holy shit, why didn't they discover it? I said, because they're not looking for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was the years that took me minutes to know what to look for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do it on paper on a writing pad. I kind of have a hypothesis in my head that this is the ailment, and then I played with the data to validate,
yeah.
invalidate, and I found exactly the answer, and I said, here's your answer.
Right.
So they understand the value of the years. Also, they say if we pay you a lot, you are also first on the chopping block, because today with everybody saying, they look at the Excel sheet if you're very highly paid.
Yeah.
If you're fractionally paid, you're very low on the Excel sheet because you're not
safe.
even showing.
Yeah.
You're very safe. You're earning less than the brand managers on an annualized basis. You may be earning it in 2 days of a month. Is the other
What
thing.
they earn for 30 days.
Yeah, the other value in fractional, there are 2 types of fractional CMOs, and I've played both. One is I show up 3 days a month and I disappear for 28 days. That's a terrible model, because what that does is, you give me a lot of stuff, I don't know what to do with it, and then I struggle 28 days, and sometimes I haven't moved an inch, and 28 days later you're asking me why I haven't moved. Today when I do fractional, I say I'll show up a certain number of days, but the rest of the time I'm available via WhatsApp, email, not exactly on demand. If I'm sitting in a meeting, I'll tell you, but fairly on demand. If you send me a message, you'll get an answer unless I'm in a no signal zone. So they understand the value. You are their counsel. You are available. So today, I think it's got more structured. I think I don't call myself a fractional CMO because I don't do just that. I do business strategy, and it actually narrow casts me. Maybe it lowers my. I have poorer SEO if people look for fractional CMO, but I don't use that word.
Right.
I still say advisor, consultant, etc.
Right.
Obscure things like brand doctor.
Right. Yeah. Got it. I'm observing it. I think for some people they know how to make it work, so they're making it work. Some people absolutely have no idea how to make it work, so they're going back with that distasteful experience. They're like, oh, fractional CMOs don't work.
Yeah.
So I'm getting both mixed reaction from the market, which is the case. Early days.
It's
right?
early days. Yeah.
I have a question on AI, but I will not ask the generic question of what your thoughts are, because I think it's clear if you're a practitioner in marketing what your thoughts would be. Have you seen any product or any use of AI which has really opened your mind and eyes up to something that could be like revolutionary going forward? Anything at all?
Particularly with regard to advertising, not performance marketing, because that will go into the technical side of how to use AI kind of. Particularly with advertising, I've seen a lot of AI using advertising output, and I've seen TVCs with AI. The most popular for wrong reasons was the Coca-Cola ad during Christmas, where it was completely created with AI, and it was a very terrible experience to look at the final version. It was looking very bad, actually. It was terrible. I think an Indian insurance brand used it recently for New Year or something. I think for Christmas again. It was atrociously bad. It was just stock images which are moving. Literally, that's about it. It's quite bad. So again and again, I keep asking, saying, yeah, you are using AI, it's fine, but what is the idea in that ad? Where is it heading to? What's the creative idea? I have not seen even one so far, but I saw one which blew my mind. It had a fantastic idea. It was for a car brand. Fantastic. The idea came first. AI came next for execution. There are some shots which can be more efficiently, cheaply done using AI. So they appropriated that for AI alone. In one case, the car was created with AI instead of using a car to shoot the whole thing, which makes it more time consuming, expensive, and etc. They just put together the vehicle in AI and used it in an animated manner to move it around, etc. But there was a great idea, and I was actually planning to write about it next week, which I will do anyway. It's a fantastic idea, but it was idea first, AI second. AI was a tool. You use AI as a tool for your human idea, it works very well. If you put AI as saying, look what I have done with AI, there is no idea at all, unfortunately.
Right.
So hopefully it'll be used with a human idea first, and then execution wise use the tool to do it better.
Right.
So AI is still in the novelty phase, where I've done an ad using AI is a talking point. And not that Coca-Cola needs to do it, but they do it for the heck of it, etc. The point that Karthik says the idea comes first, I go hoarse saying this. I mean, I've said it like 20 years ago. Facebook is not an idea, likes is not an idea, followers is not an idea. That list keeps getting added on, and AI is not an idea. Start with an idea, make AI do it. An interesting application of AI, one agency founder wrote a post sometime back. He says, I go to my team with a brief and they say we need 1 week. I worked with AI, I got a theme campaign ready, gave it to them, I got it in a week because they realized that, the idea can be baked faster. So it's actually a smart way of actually energizing the team to more valuable use of their time. And therefore, when I was growing up in advertising as a young flunky, we used to be sent to Raddi shops to buy old magazines, which art directors would go through to get reference pictures. That changed to stock libraries and Google Images and search. That has changed to AI.
No, you create it with AI.
Today you create it with AI.
Whatever comes to your mind.
But if you delegate the entire end-to-end process to AI, then that's wrong. People thought computers will make them redundant. No. Certain things they did became more redundant, but certain things that are valuable became more valuable. And people are making more money per hour in the advertising business for the value they bring than they would have brought in a non-digitally powered, internet powered, now AI powered world.
So you can ask an AI for ideas also, not necessarily execution support. You can ask, for instance, a brand can ask saying, give me 3 great ideas to pitch this brand as this. But you would still need human intervention to understand which one is better on what context, on what parameters. You would still need to. For that, you need experience. You need various other data points to that. AI won't know that.
And also, AI is based on ML, which is machine learning. A lot of that is digital data points. A lot of our world, we are sitting in a room. We are not sitting. So AI is learning nothing of this conversation. It will learn when you put it on YouTube.
Right.
So when I want to launch a product for a certain psychographic demographic sitting in some state of India, AI will only be as good as its ML is.
Right.
And minus the ML, it's stumbling. It will say, I think what you're saying is like how it is in Spain and in Madrid, because the Madras sounds like Madrid, and therefore let me give you this. Then Karthik will write a long post on why the Tamil sensibilities have been hurt, because people don't throw tomatoes at each other in Madras.
We cook them.
Yeah, you do that. You make rasam.
Exactly.
You don't stamp on them, etc.
True. I'm actually very curious to see how brand marketing integrates more with AI. I think that's where the challenge is. Performance is really happening already.
Yes.
I think Meta themselves are introducing something called Advantage Plus, which is a tool on the platform, which removes human intervention required. The AI will optimize your ads by itself, based on where the results are coming. So you need less performance marketers on the dashboard, for example. And I do this nowadays when, I do the same. I ask for raw data from Excel. And then I now insert that into GPT and then ask it to give me what I want, right?
Yes.
And that is a filtration process. So I think in performance and in anything that is 100% digital dashboard led, I think maximum 100% utilization of AI is going to happen.
Yes.
Brand marketing is what I'm very keen to see where it can. And like you said, I think there is a problem globally, I assume, which is a lot of brands do it for the sake of it because they want to be the first in the category that does it. Right?
So it's a great press release for them.
You win an award. There'll be some, local ad club award saying use of AI.
Yeah.
But once it becomes mainstream, like photography, like animation,
so that novelty will be
animation was a big thing at one point.
Yeah.
Now you can actually animate with just text.
Correct.
Literally.
100%. Right. This brings me to another interesting question, very centric to two of you. I don't know if anyone else is capable of answering this, which is both of you review a lot of communication, ads, collaterals, etc. Right? And you are razor sharp in picking up, be it a typo, be it something fundamentally wrong, etc. And you do deconstruct it really, really well. For the large audience, it's great, right? We love it because we get to learn from it. In the case of certain agencies or brands who are at the receiving end of it, could be a little difficult because someone internally is losing their head. What has been your experience to that? Does it affect also your business prospects in the future? Do people sort of keep that hold that against you and maybe not give you business? Does that happen?
To me, it has been completely the opposite. In fact, more people confide in me saying that they wanted this kind of perspective. They are not getting this perspective from the S men around them or S women around them at all. They wanted, and I try to make it as less personal. I mean, it's not personal at all because I have no clue who the brand is, brand manager is, which agency it is. I mean, I make a point to mention the agency name, but when it's too negative, I also avoid mentioning the agency name just to not make it too obvious kind of stuff. But I've heard from more people that this actually helped them look at things differently. In fact, one of the best examples I can give, which I've also spoken in the past also, is when the Maggie crisis hit, the Maggie-led crisis hit, I wrote a series of posts on my blog on how they are doing things wrong, what they should be doing better. 3 or 4 years later, when I met a couple of people from the Maggie Nestle team at a stream event, they actually took me aside and I was saying I'm going to get hit today, but they actually said, thank you for saying all that thing because we are not getting that from our agency, whether it's social media or PR agency. You were almost like somebody outside giving us valuable tips on how to do, and we were just executing whatever you're saying with the agency's help. So, which really helps. So I think I don't think there are enough people who offer counterpoints at all. Everybody wants to scratch each other's back because they're just looking at where my next business will come from or who I can join next. I think we need a lot more people with lot more constructive counterpoints out there, and very few people do it well, I think. So there is a big opportunity there.
Right.
So in my experience, two things. One is I'm not personally critical of a person. I am observing a behavior and a message by a brand. So I'm not saying you as the brand manager are wrong or whatever. So I'm not getting personal. It's at a brand level. Okay, there's no malice to the person in the brand because
no individual.
Because the person who's doing it has got approved. Someone has done it. Okay. This morning I put an ad of the PV Sindhu ad which Titan has put on wedding watches, and I said. I think it's a lazy attempt, and one expects better from Titan and the agency, and into brackets I did Ogilvy. I'm not sure because now they work with many agencies who do many tiny things, but I expect better.
Yeah.
I mean, Titan know better here.
I also think it's lazy.
I thought it's a lazy ad. It looked like a very 80s ad, and if it has to go retro, then it wasn't pushing it that level. Also because today people make reels and they don't know how to translate a reel. They take a frame of a reel and make it a print ad. They don't know how print works as print. Yeah. So they took one frame and it's a reel first, print second ad. The other thing is Karthik is, of course, in his post, very pinpointing on the communication aspects. I'm a little less literal, more lateral in the sense I take it as a starting point and go somewhere else, which is my engagement is very low on 90% of my posts. And when I put up something on a data point that Dainik Bhaskar put up the other day, I don't know how he lives on LinkedIn. It's got like 150,000 interactions and all. It's like I hate my stream. Yeah. I want to quit LinkedIn for a week and come back when that dies down. But every now and then it's bumping up. Yeah. I'm very happy when I get 68 likes and a silent stream, because I kind of don't actually. You say, what's the point he's making? He started here and he went there. So my view is a little different. And interestingly, I got feedback from somebody. I'd praised something or not praised something regarding to something Amul did. And my client who I'm working with, her husband works in an agency that handles the Amul brand, and on his WhatsApp group the MD of Amul shared this saying some influencer has said this about us. So I was like, oh my god, this thing gets around sometimes. Like Karthik says, it gets around. The MD of Amul thinks I'm an influencer. Yeah, I'm a guy who writes a few posts from here to there. Influencer comes somewhere else. Karthik is one.
Yeah. No, I'm not. No, I think you are, because I messaged you on WhatsApp. You took 3 weeks to respond. I sent you a request on LinkedIn.
No, it was just wrong timing.
Like that. I was like surprised. This never happened this fast with anybody.
But I've been told, why do you reply on LinkedIn? You should have a secretary responding from your office. I'm like that. Those days have gone. Yeah. I mean, who am I? Even Anand Mahendra responds on Twitter. Yeah, right. I'm only one marketing Johnny around.
Yeah. There's a very interesting story with Karthik. I was telling him the first time we spoke on call about. Obviously, in the past, he's appreciated a lot of our ads. There's one particular ad of us that he absolutely shredded us for, right? But we were one of the agencies.
I've not seen any of your ads.
Oh, I will send you our entire reel after this.
They don't pop in my stream.
Probably, but you must have seen something here or there. So there was one we did with Harsha Bogle where he gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
I'm sure you
famously.
remember.
I remember
Right.
that
So
campaign.
the story is we were the digital agency on it. There were many stakeholders, but one of my junior creatives here, incidentally in this very room, he told me that he has this idea, and it was a idea about how you can show that he's getting kidnapped on
And then link it with the
digitally
reveal.
and link it to the reveal. But then too many people involved. It changed by the time the execution happened, and we were not on the execution front. I think somebody else was getting it done. So he gets kidnapped, if you remember that
Yeah,
great
I
ad.
remember it.
And then it went haywire, and people said, "Oh shit, then there was a terrorist." And someone else released something on Twitter saying ATS has warned the IPL crew in Taj
God.
that to be. So it went spiral out of control, right? And I think I got calls from everybody from BCCI to Star Sports to the brand.
Shit,
Obviously,
really?
Yeah. So Star Sports called us because we work with Hotstar. BCCI called the team, obviously the brand and everybody, asking them to cut off, and eventually we had to reveal. So our initial plan was to reveal it within the next half an hour, so the ad goes
That's
live.
ideal.
Yeah, so it doesn't spiral. But then obviously we waited a day because they were like, "Oh, it's going viral, let it go viral." I said, "This is a
Bad
terrible,"
idea.
but
Yeah.
too many people involved, so took a backseat. But he wrote this great long post about it, and the reason I'm mentioning that is because you often see those examples today, right? A Poonam Pandey,
Yeah.
that was one.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, yes, madam is the other.
Today, people are asking whether Saif Khan actually got injured.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
not.
exactly.
Seriously.
I mean, so today we've come
Shit.
to a level where
You
the
don't
guy has
trust
gone and
anything at
done
all.
6 hours of surgery next to his spine. With the medical director of a reputed hospital giving
Leelavati,
a
right?
medical report,
Yeah.
and if this is a setup, then we'll have faith in nothing.
We have huge trust.
Then we are going to, and yes, you'll say, you know what, you're saying this, 4 days later something else will come along, but generally the overall faith in anything buzzy will go.
Right.
You just not trust anything buzzy, full stop.
So the reason I'm asking about the state of those sort of ads today is because as an example for example that Harsha campaign we did for Fantasy Akhada, we won an Abby's, right, on viral video category, right? So if you're getting rewarded,
It did go viral.
Yeah,
That's
it
the
did.
whole point.
It absolutely did. We have Telegraph from the US and from the UK write articles about this, etc. Right, but there's a negative connotation, nothing about the.
But it did get viral. Nobody
right?
looks at the sentiment at all.
Exactly,
anymore.
right? And rightfully so. And I think if you get awarded for those kind of campaigns,
You do
then
more of them.
Yeah, so now you're crossing the ethical or the moral ground for that matter. And then is there a space to operate in, which is where you do something like that, but then you also don't step on the negative side of it.
So you do what's right rather than what's easy. So the agency that did somebody's death, I have very, very high regard for the founder of that agency. The guy's got balls. He's built a great shop and whatever.
Harshal, right?
But I will not recommend that agency to my clients. He doesn't care because Ashok Lalla is not recommending agencies to hundreds of clients. He'll do very well, and my clients will do very well even if they work with him. But I come from it saying he did the wrong thing. He did the wrong thing. Yes, the client bought it. They collectively did the wrong thing. Someone has to stand up saying, don't do it. Initially, newspapers used to kidnap an RJ. It stayed within Bangalore Times, Bombay Times. They didn't have the amplification. It's been done since many years. It's not a new thing.
One of the more popular response actually when they actually announced that Malaika Arora and Arbaz Khan were divorcing.
But
for 1 week it percolated in mainstream media, not online, because this was in 2006. There was no Facebook at the time at all. It was offline.
Yeah, but today you are today because of the surround, and the reality is how many people look for cervical cancer, go to the Google Trends the day after the campaign, it's Zup.
Obviously
Zup.
it will.
That is Zup only.
Yeah.
It will be Zup.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is, right? Anything you look at the next day and the day after. Of course, you win viral awards and stuff. And
But it's 1 day effect.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the issues I've had, and I've talked to organizers of ad awards, and therefore I don't get invited to any juries any longer, is, we need to, if you want to do the right thing, you need to cast your rewards and recognition accordingly. Today, if you're encouraging people to get rewarded and get their next job based on micro campaigns they run, everybody is running micro campaigns.
Yeah.
There is nothing known as campaign of the year any longer, because I can win a reel in 8 seconds, a reel in 4 seconds, a viral logo, an animated something, use of AI, I before A before I, the categories keep extending. Ad organizers, award organizers get more entries, more money.
Right.
It's a it's a virtuous or a vicious cycle. It's become a vicious cycle because if this is what you recognize, award, and celebrate, this is what you'll do more of.
Right.
People are in their resumes putting this down.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact,
So-
you won't see a large established agency pull off something like this at all, which crosses the line of ethical and ethical. But you can still have an X factor in your idea and not do the wrong thing. For instance, Talented produces a lot of work which has an X factor. Even in print ads, they have an X factor.
Yeah.
Because they always think, okay, this is functional. What is the X factor that we can add, which is the right thing to do?
Right.
And they do it quite well.
Right.
Amongst the large, I think Enormous does a lot of very, very interesting. I'm a big fan of their Lahore Zira ad. Yeah. It's a normal ad where it shows a lot of people drinking Lahore Zira. That's about it. That's the normal communication. X factor is everybody is moving along while drinking. That's X factor. As simple as that.
Got it. Just on the topic, right? Is Talented the benchmark today, you would say, for what is creative?
Mainstream advertising, yes, I would say.
A lot of young people also, right? In the organization, filled with what you call a Gen Z and millennials at best. And probably we're speaking a lot about industry going the wrong way, but they have probably created a sort of a template or are
They
leading
have,
the
I
light in
think they
terms of
have.
what's doing. And while being very award focused, are also
They are.
a mix of what is good ideas.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Practical, rooted ideas.
It's not just that. I think they have good ideas and they package those ideas also well.
Right.
It's not as if they think that it will take a life of its own. They are packaging it quite well. And they're actually looking at old-fashioned medium like print ads to get their fame. So it actually works. Even I mean, like outdoors and billboards. Their last work for Britannia was quite good actually. So they are probably a good model to look at the next Ogilvy kinds because they are focusing on the idea and the X factor behind the idea.
But what's the longevity of that model is going to say whether they become an Ogilvy. So, for instance, this Britannia campaign got celebrated, and I put it there saying, I don't think they had too many sites because it's not a true outdoor campaign. Okay, and I saw three pictures, right, which were floating around. There were about 3.
7 cities actually.
Yeah, whatever, 7 cities, but they actually did only 6 sites. They did only 6 sites. So it was not a outdoor campaign of 100 hoardings in a city or in a catchment. It was an outdoor campaign with an idea for 6 sites that then got amplified via digital. It's not the first time it's been done.
But again, it's not a B2C campaign.
But
because it's not a product campaign.
Yeah,
it's
but
a corporate campaign.
the offline spread because someone answered from Talented and he says we auditioned 73 trees, we shortlisted 12, we used 6. My gut said 3, I was off by 3. It wasn't a 100 hoarding campaign. It was a 6 hoarding campaign.
But how does it matter?
No. So if you were only on the road, you didn't see the campaign. You saw it through clever digital amplification.
But there are a lot more people on digital than they are on the road. No. So it doesn't matter.
No. So I'm saying the idea was strong. No. I'm not saying you don't do a catchment campaign.
Medium.
Sorry.
In fact,
more
I would
about
say,
channel or medium.
Yeah.
Even if you do only
what
one
the agency
hoarding-
did right, and again, this is not a new idea. Axe Angels went and spent $1 million in Times Square and $1 million in the UK. So they picked 2 of the most iconic locations and then they blew it up all over the world. They didn't try and do one at India Gate, etc.
You can actually do an obscure OOH and it can become popular.
Red Bull spends millions of dollars doing one single crazy stunt and then takes it worldwide. So today, great ideas can be singularly executed and digitally amplified. And hopefully they also have longevity legs, because the only thing with the digital amplification, okay, that's a Britannia corporate campaign. If it served its brand goals, good, but it's only a 3-day waterfall. If it needed a longer waterfall, then it needs slightly more conventional legs and placement. If it was a 3-day waterfall that's good and served their purpose in the annual report, the chairman will say, your company is this and we did 3 bullet points, great. Hopefully it'll have longer legs. Agencies even like Taproot broke the mold and kind of, broke the conventional mold. There used to be a joke, when JWT used to handle Pepsi and Airtel, and Taproot did the most award-winning campaigns at that point. They said JWT presents Route 1, Route 2 and Taproot. So, because, after the client didn't buy 2 routes, they went to Taproot because they went and did under JWT's nose, Pepsi and Airtel, which were big JWT clients. So that model worked, but it didn't have legs. Creative Land Asia is another agency that broke the creative mold at the time
At one
it
point,
came. Completely very good creative work, great campaigns, but somewhere down
Not
the line they
sustainable.
stumble. So hopefully talented
Talented
enough to stay the course, or willing to stay the course and not kind of bow to someone writing them a check, at which time they become reporting to some guy in APAC and
Two things though. I would say that even if you do one billboard in an obscure location that nobody looks at and it's photographed and shared online, it becomes popular. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. That's actually the Lord Ganesh model of going around the parents instead of the Lord Murugan model who goes all around the world and comes back for that. So it's perfectly fine. That's number one. Number two,
nice mythological reference.
I use it very often, and everybody knows this. You don't need to explain anything further. Everybody knows this perfectly. Of course, South people know it better because there is Murugan in South. Up North, they don't care about Murugan at all. So the second point is that in terms of the longer legs of the corporate campaign of Britannia, particularly with this talented campaign, the longer legs is not a billboard. Longer legs is sustainability as a campaign for Britannia, amongst which few points they extracted and put it on a billboard. There will be 10 other things that Britannia would be doing without talent at all. So the internal team would be doing, the external team, some large agency would be doing. All put together is a long leg. One visible manifestation of this long leg is a billboard, which is perfectly fine. It's a very pointed exercise for just one particular point that they did really well and that they came out quite well. It's perfectly fine. Maybe Talented has been asked to do 10 more things which are very unglamorous, which are not like a billboard at all, which you will see only in an annual report, which you will see only in an annual report video that they do, which we won't see at all. But it's part of the larger thing, I think.
I'll tell you about this visibility hack, which I came across in an interesting manner because, people like high profile visibility, right? So a former client of mine, did a post saying, we have this billboard on Times Square. So I told another client of mine in the same city that, interesting, he did this. So then I discovered putting up a billboard in Times Square, 15-second billboard that rotates 4 times an hour for 24 hours costs 2 lakh rupees. And they're concessionaires sitting like, outdoor concessionaires here. So all you need to do is spend 2 lakh rupees, get someone in New York to shoot by daylight, shoot in the evening, and then go onto social media saying this.
And say we are on Times Square.
Even as a fractional CMO, I can go and spend 2 lakhs to say, I'm on Times Square as a whatever. And I've seen event organizers doing it with their speakers over there because it costs 2 lakhs. That's all it costs. But amplification can give you great value.
I've been on Times Square.
Right. And that brand suddenly is like, I am conquering America. No. You only put
you are for 3 seconds on Times Square.
15 seconds every hour, 4 times an hour.
That's it.
And it's only on one. So it's not like if you actually stood in Times Square as an American consumer, you're going to get wow. You've not even seen it. Because
so you haven't conquered anything at all.
But it's a brilliant hack.
Yeah.
Use it for one of your clients.
Yeah.
Or a few.
Yeah, probably. No, I've seen a lot of actually Indian agencies are getting featured on Times Square. So I figured there's obviously something to do. Yeah.
Again, what really matters is what do you say in those 15 seconds or 10 seconds. If you say something which stands out, you will have much longer legs actually. Otherwise, it will just die down.
Yeah. So both of you have spent time at what I would think is Bangalore's biggest brands in those categories. Let's say Ogilvy is probably the biggest creative, at least reputation-wise, the biggest creative agency, and also probably business-wise in terms. And you've obviously had stint at Infosys, which is synonymous with Bangalore, and undoubtedly probably the leader in tech, right? Or in B2B services. If you were to look at what, because you were also at that time there when the digital revolution was happening, right? Where did a big organization of that nature not get this digital wave or get transitions right, or let me rephrase that a little. What did they not do right, which probably some of the independent or smaller firms from a communication perspective were able to adapt to faster? And if you were able to pinpoint that to 1 or 2 reasons, is there anything that stands out over the others?
In terms of comms or advertising, I can't think of any specifically because they keep coming and they keep going. Not everybody survives the long run. They keep selling, or they close shop, or they look at a job kind of. So it's okay. It doesn't matter at all. But in terms of brands that I remember very specifically, for instance, when I'd come to Bangalore for the first time around 2000 types, Tata Telecom was very big. Now Tatas are not even in the telecom space at all. I mean, there are only two brands largely in telecom, and there is a VI, which is the third wheel kind of stuff, which is Vodafone. Tata Telecom used to be very, very big. My first landline was a Tata Telecom. Now there is no landline also. That's a different thing. In fact, more than Tata Telecom, the telecom brand from Anil Ambani, not Jio, the other one. I mean, like Reliance Telecom, which used to be there. It was all over the place because it was dirt cheap. In fact, my parents back in Coimbatore got it, but the service was so poor. I mean, like, not in terms of connectivity. Connectivity was perfectly fine. The customer service was so poor that my dad used to get calls from interior Tamil Nadu asking him if he is an inspector in Madurai. There is some cross connection between the number and etc. And it was atrocious. And after about 6 months, he said, I want to throw this off. I don't want this at all. It's too much of hassle. No wonder the company doesn't exist anymore at all. I don't know why Tata didn't pursue telecom play, but they didn't pursue it at all. So, of course, telecom, you can argue saying it's a much larger play. You need to get so many things right at the government level, state level, international level, that you cannot survive for smaller players at all. Ad agencies like that. You can be a small shop in Indiranagar, you can continue to be a small shop also. But I can't think of anything from a communications perspective that has changed over a period of time. There were a lot of Facebook agencies back then, Twitter agencies at some point, and digital media. Social media monitoring used to be a big agency play. A lot of companies made a lot of money. They evolved to saying social media dashboards. Now nobody even cares about dashboards. You ask AI, it will give you everything in 2 minutes.
Correct.
So nobody cares at all. So things change eventually, I guess.
So I can't answer Bangalore specific for two reasons. My digital journey started in 2000. I only moved to Bangalore 12 years later. At risk of sounding a little immodest at the Taj, because our competition was global hotel chains and we were trying to attract foreign travelers into India, we actually were ahead of the curve by a long way. We were the first hotel chain in India to have a booking engine, first hotel chain in India to do online real-time bookings. We ran SEM back in 2003, where the ROAS we achieved for global hotels was 23x ROAS. Me and the revenue manager, we won international awards like 20 years ago, before people were talking of CAC and SHAC and all that. So we were ahead of the curve there, to the extent that other Tata companies used to come and meet us at the Taj and actually say, tell us how you're going about your journey, what is the website, how do we create it back then. It was a little different when I joined Infosys. So Infosys, leading IT chain, great website. It was very presence focused. Like a typical IT company, the website was its strongest repository of everything. I think if there's one change that I was able to bring, coming as an outsider, non-IT person, was to turn a presence-focused digital marketing approach to an outreach-focused one. So when I joined, literally in the year before I joined, they had spent, I think, $1,000 on outreach by accident. Everything else was spent on presence, including a lot of money on servers and you're managing the website and this. I changed it. Increased the digital marketing budget and changed it to a 70-30. Why was the 30 still on presence? Because there are a lot of things which are traditional IT companies do, firewalls and stuff, which are infra based, not marketing based. But those things, as an IT company, you protect yourself, you're paranoid about it, etc. So I think that was a huge change. And at the point I left, they said, you have even more ideas for that, but we'll do them down the line. This is too radical. And I think if I have to look at Infosys in the last 8-9 years and see what I see of their digital, and I see very little because India is not their market. Their market is elsewhere. But when I see posts they put up on what they're doing elsewhere, because that's where the action takes place. India is not at all a market, so we are not exposed to what they are running. They are actually now a very outreach focused kind of a business. And that learning came actually 4 years earlier, when I had the chance to work on IBM in 2008. I was part of the international team at Euro RSCG that was retained by IBM to do digital strategy. Ogilvy was digital campaigns. So we were their strategy agency. Ogilvy earned much more doing campaigns. But in the one simple thing that we did at IBM that I applied at Infosys, they said the best of IBM is behind the firewall. And what we did to change is we broke the firewall and put all that data that needed a login and an email ID to access in front of the firewall. So in one word, that changed, and I applied that in Infosys because I had run it at scale at IBM. So I think today a lot of people unfortunately are only focusing on what's in front of the firewall in borrowed and shared spaces like Instagram, and are not building any owned digital assets. So while YouTube gives you distribution, Spotify gives you distribution, if you're too distributed, you still need something that brings it together, because your YouTube page will never be your brand page.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to your brand page.
It's
Today,
a borrowed
subscribers
page.
on YouTube doesn't matter,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at it as a reel on Insta. I will never see 2 hours of this video, but I will see 25
Smaller clips.
smaller clips.
At
And,
various
and
points of
brand
time.
assets and brand digital homes are still important. Call them websites, call them BTL stuff which customers can see. So every customer has a unique Amazon page based on their buying behavior. The Amazon homepage, there's no Amazon homepage. How do you make that work harder from a brand building perspective? I think is an opportunity which not too many brands actually even consider to.
Right.
In fact, Infosys reminds me, I worked on one Infosys campaign, which he wouldn't know at all, or he might have heard about it, which when I was in Edelman used to handle.
Right.
I mean, so Infosys was not our client at all. Infosys Prize came to us saying that they have a practical problem. Infosys Prize is an award which is given to Indian origin scientists every year. There are about 5 or 6 scientists get that award. It's a big amount, about $50,000 per head. It's a huge amount. It's a very prestigious. It's it's probably one of the largest prizes given to scientists of Indian origin in India. They came to us with a very practical problem saying, we announce Infosys Prize every year. There are about 6 awards, and it's a gala event where Mr. Murthy comes and talks to the media, and media writes about it. We always get coverage the next day in the local press, international press, everywhere, because it's a big award. It's almost like the Turing Awards of India kind of. So that's there. But whenever we try to communicate why this scientist won the award, they just write verbatim whatever we give them in the press release. Nobody is able to understand what it is. Is there something that you can do with it? And we were a digital agency. Edelman was a digital agency for that. One of my most cherished work was the output for that. We actually, for the first time, this was in 2000, maybe 8, 9 or 10, one of the years, the first time, we actually created comic strips explaining why a particular scientist won an award, which meant we have to understand the science behind what made them interesting, what was the X factor that made them win that award, and then tell that in the form of a story that even a 5-year-old child can understand. And once they floated it to the media and once they put it on their website, the media started asking more evolved questions, because for the first time they understood why this award was given to a particular scientist. So it was literally toning down the complexity of the communication for a 5-year-old child, which made it far more accessible to a lot more people. And for the next 3-4 years, they actually went for the same stream. They do a press release, but they also release comic strips. In comic strips, it doesn't matter how good the art is. How good the script is matters. Art can be completely stick figures. It doesn't matter at all. How the script is matters everything. For the script, you need to understand it deeply. Why that scientist won the award, which you have no clue at all, because it's in literally rocket science. But you need to make an effort to understand from the point of view of a child.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. So since I told the team that you guys are coming in, they internally sort of sent in a few questions. I think our producer picked about 3 of them. I'm gonna ask them. You guys tell me which of you would want to answer.
Did they
which one.
ask specifically who should answer any?
No, they
generic.
They didn't.
We didn't. Or maybe we didn't collect that information. So I don't know.
Good enough.
Right. So yeah. So one thing that's in the news is what the L&T's chairman said. So the question is, L&T has been making news in recent times after the chairman remarks of a 90-hour work week and the company's statement following it. How do you think they have handled it? Considering
Badly, in one word.
Yeah.
Silence is not good. If something explodes, waiting for it to blow over is not good, because you're letting the stream take its course. It's like if there's a wildfire, you at least try and stir away the wildfire rather than say, you know what, by the time it reaches me, it won't burn me down, or it'll dissipate, or there'll be a wind that'll blow it away, another trending topic will come in. I think that's their very reactive, very archaic kind of response. First there was a templated we stand for nation building kind of press release. Then they got a couple of people who are, we don't know how senior, but fairly senior people writing posts on LinkedIn on their personal handles. All personal handles are personal opinion. It's not official opinion. So while you may be very, very senior, you didn't post it or didn't get amplified by the official handle. So poorly handled. Things blow up. They ought to have said, we recognize they blow up. We didn't mean to hurt people and sentiments. We are sorry. We mean this. Ideally, the person who blew it up out of proportion should come back and say, oops, mistake, hands up. I'm a great engineer, civil engineer. I run a great institution that builds buildings and bridges that stand the test of time for 50 years and more. This one, we tripped up. You know, leaders take the flak. This leader didn't.
So I would say it was atrociously handled, not just badly handled, atrociously handled. And there are specific points here from a corporate communication point of view. One, when the first information came out from the Reddit thread about the internal video leaking, and where he's making these stupid statements like, how long can you stare at your wife? How long can a wife stare at husband, etc. That was a starting point, and it is very obvious that it'll catch fire, because the kind of statements only two people on earth can make and still be winners. One is Trump, another is Musk. They can make the statements and live and then win a lot more. Nobody else can at all in this world. Only two people, and this guy cannot live to that, withstand that at all. So one, that was a problem. But once the problem has been established and it was going massively viral, they backed up that saying, we back our chairman's statement, he has been misinterpreted, blah, blah, nation building, blah, blah. And then two more senior leaders from HR, L&T, backed him up on LinkedIn. So they actually made things far worse for them with the responses. The responses should have been, as he said, to move the fire away from them, saying he has been misinterpreted, sorry, blah, blah, etc. and then move on with it. And then it will die down. Number one. Number two, the biggest problem in crisis communications is timing. You need to time it right. Why you should time it right? There is actually something called a news cycle. Where, earlier the news cycle used to be 24 hours because newspapers and TV channels used to derive news cycle. It was 24 hours. Now it's probably 2-3 hours literally. You need to respond within 2-3 hours. There is a reason why you need to respond. For instance, one of the better examples of a well-managed crisis example comes from Patanjali. At one point, they released an ad which said, your dark skin can be made fair with our cream. And then when it went viral online, within about 3 to 3.5 hours, Baba Ramdev wrote on Twitter saying, this is not what we meant. This is a translation problem. I wrote something, or we wrote something in Hindi. The translation is done poorly. We are sorry for it. Within 3 hours. Why the 3 hours is important? Because when people come to know about it for the first time, they don't hear only the offending thing. They also hear, we heard the offending, the brand has responded, end of story, finished. In this case, the next day they came up with a response which was worse. So first they hear this guy has said something, oh, this is bad. Next they hear the company backed him and said, yeah, it stands for it. This is worse. 2 more people write on day 3 and day 4, worse and worse. So timing was bad, response was bad, everything was bad. They could have just culled everything and saying, yes, he was misinterpreted. We are sorry for offending sentiments. Move on in life. That's about it. They didn't do that at all. As simple as it. Right. They just need to show their data that our official policy states that people don't work for 90 hours. That is ridiculous. That's about it. End of topic. Right. They just made it far worse for them. It's almost like story was going bad. They poured petrol on themselves saying, let's do this better. Bad.
Right. Another one that's come internally is, what are some of the brands in terms of what are some of the underrated brands in terms of their advertising game at the moment?
What do you mean underrated?
The brands who are doing it right but not noticed as much. Let's put it that way.
I would put whole truth as that, because they don't advertise a whole lot. They are available a lot. They are fairly well available. They don't do a whole lot of advertising. They do limited kind of advertising. Whatever they do there is a thought behind why they're doing. Of course, they have a brand USP itself, the purity, clean kind of. So that USP is there. But there are quite a few brands in the whey and protein which are also in the clean label kind of thing. But they are doing things slightly better. From a larger brand, I think there is a particular brand called Sabhyata, which is into clothing, which has been consistently working with only one agency. It's called FSay Fursat or FSay something. It's a very interesting small agency. I have not even heard about it at all. But they've been working with their agency for about 6 or 7 years. Every year they produce at least one ad either for Raksha Bandhan or Diwali or Women's Day or something like that. If you go to YouTube and look at all their ads, you will be stunned. They are Ogilvy level storytelling, really deeply emotional. There is a nice story arc. There is a nice idea behind it, but completely unheard. You would not have heard about Sabhyata at all. Now, if you go to Sabhyata on YouTube and check all their ads, you will be stunned saying, wow, this is great storytelling they're doing year after year after year. Why haven't I heard about this brand at all? Check out.
So one of the challenges is, we don't get exposed to as much advertising because it's not targeted at you today, right? And that's one challenge.
In fact, we see more ads because some friend told me to see
But otherwise, you don't see them.
You're not interrupted with ads anymore at all.
And the filter I use when I see an ad is not whether they're doing a good job as compared to what everyone else is doing, because the average quality of advertising is mediocre. And therefore, a spark above mediocre doesn't make it great. Unfortunately, ad awards award the best of the entries. Yeah. Again, a Mohammed Khan story. He was ad jury of something. He walked across all the ads and said 00000 and walked out of the room. They never invited him again. He said, but they're all shit. Mm-hmm. I can't award it. I can't award mediocrity. So today we award topicality, we award virality, we award smile value or trigger value. I look at it and say, is there an idea? And I still only find ideas in older agency ads coming up. The Madhya Pradesh tourism that Ogilvy did, the entire ad was it was a boring tourism itinerary put out in the art form, theatre form of Madhya Pradesh, which is puppets and whatever, with a Sutradhar who is this classical singer-dancer. It was actually a boring itinerary of 10 places to visit in Madhya Pradesh, brought alive. So I give that high value. There's a central idea. It has legs, arms, not arms, whether it has 4 reels and virality. Can that be a continuing campaign for 10 years? Today, I don't think any ad awards, and if anyone from any of the ad award juries watches this, actually has long-running campaigns, 5-year running campaigns. You should actually award people for the longevity of an idea, award brand managers for the strength of a strong idea. Today, those are largely lacking.
The brand manager will be out in 8 months.
Everybody is looking at what's cool. So if organic is cool, how do I wrap organic, good for you, green, and build a story? They don't build beyond that. You take off the veneer and it's hollow inside.
The last one is if you could go back in time and give any professional advice to yourself, right? For that, in your first job, that is, what would that be, considering where the world has gone today?
I would say read a lot more. I'm doing it now. I should have done it maybe 20-25 years ago. It would have been far more useful because kids these days don't read at all completely. When I say read, not just read a book, consume a lot more relevant information about your industry is very, very important. And this is something that I keep telling again and again, because from an advertising point of view, the famous saying, which was by an agency owner named Carl Ali, she said, the whole statement was that your next big idea would come from page 46 of your client's annual report. But unless you have read the entire annual report end to end, you won't know the idea exists in 46. You never know, because the basic statement is what Steve Jobs said: great ideas are just connecting the dots. If you need to connect the dots, you need to know where the dots exist. You need to first identify that the dots exist in the first place. Only then you can connect them. To know that, you need to read more widely. You need to read breadth-wise. You need to understand a lot more about consumer psychology, consumers, how they behave, not just about your product alone. Only when you do, you will be able to connect the dots. So reading a lot more, consuming a lot more information in whatever form it is, whether it's a YouTube video, so be it. Not necessarily textbooks alone. That would be the one.
So obviously, I'll say two things, and not necessarily my first job, but just experience over the years. One is to youngsters, really, be curious. Today, people are not curious. They go for a job interview and they say, what do you make? They ask you, what do you make? When I interviewed at the Taj, it was 1996, 97. Our office in the agency had one computer which had internet in the IT room. At lunchtime, I slunk in there and went and looked for a Taj website. I found a one-page website, which was not the Taj website. It was set up by a travel agent, and I studied it.
Wow.
No, I didn't have any camera to take a picture. I made notes. Then I went to the Taj reservation office next to their hotel in Colaba, walked in and collected the entire rack of brochures and studied them, whatever brochures were there. So when I was talking in the interview, I said, you have 3 palace hotels. He said, no, we have 4. Where did you get this information? You have 42 hotels. No, we have 48. The brochure's out of date. But they appreciated I was that curious that I actually, because where would I understand what the Taj is? I didn't have anything, right? Yeah. So today they are like, what do you do? Also, a very important thing when you're going for an interview is know what the person who you're interviewing with thinks. It's available. Yeah. If I'm interviewing with a senior guy, I go and read, I check his interviews, I check his podcast, I read about him. Yeah. I actually go into his room actually talking his language. He like, I love you, man. Where did you find this? I said that 5 years ago. I said, sir, valid. I spend hours reading YouTube videos. I mean, I improved my Marathi muscle memory to seeing a podcast of a client I was working with because I had to understand what he said. Right. Because he said this, man, he's baked it for me.
And today's it doesn't matter that you saw it only that morning. From the other person's perspective,
but look on Google. Don't go on Insta.
Exactly.
Go read 5-year-old articles. Go to page 3 of Google. Search for some old print article. There is so much out there. That's one. The other thing is say yes more often. And this is actually a learning which, even Richard Branson said. When someone told him, do you want to set up a magazine in college? He said yes. When someone said set up an airline, he said yes. He said, what if I knew what it takes to set up an airline, I would have not said yes. But the thing is, if someone asks you to do something and you have no clue about it, guess what? Even they have no clue about it because they think you'll find a way. I mean, they know you have no clue about it, but they think you'll find a way. So say yes more. I think a lot of youngsters say, this brand, will it look good? Is it cool? Haan, bol do yaar. You'll find a way. One door will close, another door will open. You have to go there. Yeah. Just say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes. Yeah.
But the kids say yes for a lot of relationships, not for brands.
Yeah, situationships.
Situationships. I'm talking about human relationships, not brand relationships.
So yes. Any last questions? You as the principal of the podcast and the host have for us.
I'll reverse it back. Do you have any questions? I think I've asked so many today.
I have one question. Sure. How difficult is the agency business these days?
It is.
Is it creatively challenging at all?
It is. It's a different kind of creatively challenging. I also think I have different experience over 8 years now. I think it'll be 8 years next month. So first few years were very different to the next few, which is in COVID to after COVID. So I think I have 3 phases that I can talk about. Initially was finding a place. So that was always being underdog. And I think that was different. And I think what used to happen before COVID is if you're a social agency, you get branded as a social agency. Correct. Or a performance agency and you only get those work, right? Post-COVID, it just changed where they couldn't afford to have many agencies. So then they would consolidate and give you all mandates. And I think that's where we explored. And I think now, right now, I think the market has shifted because all the funded startups have shifted to making it more profitable businesses. So then the job of the agency also is to suggest ideas or solutions that are also not too expensive, but at the same time gives result. But at the time, in need for speed and metric driven outputs, somewhere that creativity and creative thinking is a bit affected, no doubt. But you have to draw a line and then educate the client, and you have to find find clients who are willing to understand this. And I think that is a challenge. I also think there's a huge shift in workforce. So when I started out, to be honest, I was 25 and I was oldest in the early days, and then we started getting people from outside. Then we got a lot of people from bigger network agencies, and I feel difference has been that working a predominantly millennial driven organization was different. Now we are predominantly a Gen Z driven organization in terms of sheer numbers. It's very different. So you have to find the balance, and I think for me it has been a huge effort to unlearn and relearn or learn new practices of management over the last 18 months or so. So I've done a bit of that, but I think there's still space. I still feel if you are doing quality work, then you will find a solution. And to me, honestly, now it's been 8 years, so now I've got better at it. So it is easy because of that, because you've been doing it again and again. But starting an agency today, in today's world, very difficult. Very. In fact, I suggest people not to do it. Like
go on your own, that's better.
Yeah, like absolutely. I think margins that you would make as a business if you're a fractional CMO or a consultant are far greater than running an organization. And to make it work as an organization, either you need incredible sort of creative reputation from a creative lens. Performance, to be honest, has become just difficult. In media buying, I think even lesser, because you just don't need an agency for that. But there is a place if you're able to find offer strategic solutions, right? And I think that's the key thing. If you're able to understand businesses and offer solution, then there is a place for you to thrive and be there. And I think after that, once you have the trust, then it's about, I think, offering more. But my fundamental belief is models of 300 people, 500 people, 1,000 people agencies are gone. Like, I think it's just it's a huge, then you're an absolute assembly line kind of business that you mentioned. But if you want to if you want to do quality work and significant work, then you have to be somewhere 50 to 100 at best. I don't think beyond that is possible.
Even that is quite large.
I think it's very large.
So you need to be a consultative execution agency where the consulting is the high value stuff.
Correct.
And the execution is almost you actually have a scalable IP around it. Because why do agencies today, I wonder why network agencies buy small agencies, because everyone in the agency has a 30-day notice period. I can hire every single one of them on 30 days or shorter. And every client has a notice period. So what does the agency actually own? The DNA of the agency is going to get buggered up anyway. So, but what the agency can own is an IP. And that IP is scalable. And, like they say, your Microsoft doesn't make money on the coding it does. It makes it on a thing called Windows that people just buy. And that's, I think, the trick.
True.
The other thing is, if you have to grow, sometimes you're held back by what's around you. And sometimes as a founder, and I don't have the answer, I'm not a founder and I don't expect a short answer unless you have it, is what would I do if payroll wasn't an issue? And what payroll, not as in, I have to pay so much money, but what would you do if the fact that, oh my God, I have a payroll to worry about isn't an issue, is something to do? And what would I do if I wanted to be, that would make me squirm? I think too many people take the comfortable, easy route rather than the road less traveled. Somewhere you need to say, this is the easy route, but if it's easy, everybody's taking it. It's like when you drive, that road which is not crowded gets crowded. You find another route. In our agency culture, we just do what the next guy is doing. Oh, he made money on this, I'll do this. Oh, AI, this.
True. That payroll thing is very interesting. I think I've never thought of it that way, but I don't think for us, I've post-COVID, I learned that you need to have leverage financially to pick and choose what you need to work on. Correct, I've had 4 or 5 years to work on it. So I've built that in such a way where we only take up business that we feel is good for us. So I keep saying internally, we need to have 3 points of growth, which is growth for us, growth for client, growth for individuals, or you as an individual who's working on things, right? If the 3 doesn't come together, then it's a bad sort of practice or a bad piece of work to do or a business to pick up.
See, the third one, you may not be able to provide after a point. If your growth is such that you want to leave because I've given you wings, please go. Otherwise, I'm forcing you.
No point.
I can't scale. Finally, Ogilvy also can't scale. Now they're saying, we have many countries, go there, go here, go there, do this. But beyond a point, if you have to leave the nest, leave. The first 2 is what you should look at. Personal growth, if you can't provide it for whatever reason, you can't say now I'll pretend to provide it or I'll limit that because you will leave. Like the joke in HR, right? If we spend money on training them, what if they leave? But what if we don't spend money and they stay? And they stay.
Far worse.
That's far worse.
Exactly.
So you'd rather say, like Lever says, I'm the CEO school of the world. Ogilvy proudly says every creative director in India over 40 has worked with Ogilvy.
Yeah, exactly.
And if he hasn't, he's regretting it, or she's regretting having not worked.
Yeah, one of my proudest things is that I've had a lot of people come work here.
Yeah.
Then go and start their own agencies.
Yeah.
And I'm actually happy about it because
Excellent.
you've created sort of some, say, you motivated them, inspired them in some ways to do it, right? Some are doing it well, some have shut down, some are running a small setup. And
That's what matters.
Right, and I think...
they got the confidence to try.
Yeah, and I think, and I always tell this to other agencies, some of them are like, some agency owners are like, how can you be cool with it? They've done it. In fact, I've had one of those guys come back on the podcast with me, because... and that's fine, because I think that needs to be the thing, because I keep telling this to agency owners. I say, if we start competing on frivolous things and not share wealth of knowledge that elevates all of us, then the simple thing is client will start in-housing things.
Correct.
So then it's already doing it, right? So when we are fighting among each other, we are losing our ground. From the other side, we should not even have visibility on. True. So I think there's a lot of those things which I learned in the early days. I felt advertising as a nature is very guarded.
It is.
Like
it's very insular. Yeah.
They don't want to share.
It's insular, insecure. Yeah. I think insecurity is the biggest malaise in advertising people.
Yeah. It's also very incestuous. Keep hiring from each other, scratch each other's back, avoid each other.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. I mean, I went through that stint of hiring from big networks.
Yeah.
And I realized that we just don't have the DNA to be those kind of... Because it
retain them.
And it just doesn't work as a business. So I think the best way is to find your own DNA, your own culture, build people in that.
Which is literally what brands are expecting from you. Can you build your own brand first before building ours?
Exactly.
Build your own brand first. Exactly.
Empower them to, to take on to the next level. Correct. So that's been my model.
Super.
Right. Great. Thank you for 3 hours of time that you gave. I don't know if you guys have ever done any podcast this long, but I hope you do.
Some of them. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how long the final thing will be. You'll probably it'll be shorter, hopefully.
Yeah. Maybe 2 hours 45 minutes.
Hopefully it'll be useful to people. They find it interesting. They'll take some value. They take 5 minutes of value. It's worthwhile.
Yeah. For sure. I think there's more than that.